Chapter 3460. Looking at the resolute black shadow, the woman said, "I'm just going to bring my Hong-er back. I won't do anything to that guy." Chiu Shuang and Vanilla stood aside, shocked that the family leader had even sent the black shadow. He was very determined. The black shadow still didn't retreat. He didn't speak, but his attitude was clear. "What's going on?" The woman said angrily, "Why are you stopping me from bringing Hong-er back?" She wasn't afraid of the family leader, but she couldn't dissuade the black shadow. The black shadow said, "After you left, Steward Mo came." Steward Mo, the woman was stunned. There was only one Steward Mo in the entire Holy Thunder clan who could make the family leader care so much. "The one from the Holy Sage's residence?" The black shadow nodded. "Why did he come? Is it for the guy who hurt my son?" the woman asked. The black shadow was silent, which was also a silent admission. "Who is that guy? How could he summon Steward Mo? Isn't the Holy Sage famous for not caring about worldly affairs?" The anger on the woman's face disappeared. She was confused. Being able to become an 8-star Holy Spirit not only meant that she had great potential, it also meant that she had great intelligence. She looked at Chiu Shuang and Vanilla. It said that Zi-chun was brought back by the Holy Sage. He didn't participate in any tests and forcibly took the place of the core disciple, Chiu Shuang said. Chiu Shuang said, "According to the information we gathered, he seems to be highly valued by the Lord." The woman's voice became sharp. "Since you knew his identity and background, why did you provoke him?" Chiu Shuang lowered her head and didn't say anything. So did Vanilla. "Humph." The woman snorted, knowing her son's nature. She also knew that the two could only follow orders. They couldn't make a choice. "You too. Hurry up and bring Hong-er back." The woman waved her hand. Since Steward Mo was here, it definitely wasn't that simple. One was the core disciple the Holy Sage found, and the other was his good son. One was in the core, and the other was in the outland. It seemed that they wouldn't have any interaction, let alone hatred. "I'd like to see who's courting death." Zi-chun sat beside Lei Jinghong and watched as his sacred blood continued to flow. The vegetation below collected all of the blood. Lei Jinghong's face was extremely pale because he had lost too much blood, but he didn't even dare to scream. Right now, he was really afraid of Zi-chun. This guy was a complete demon. At the same time, he rejoiced that the surname Lei Zheng had saved him once again. However, unlike before, he no longer dared to provoke Zi-chun. Bored, Zi-chun turned around and looked at Lei Zhenghongfang. "Why do you want to die for no reason?" Lei Zhenghong and Zi-chun looked at each other. Their eyes were full of fear, and they didn't dare to say a word. Zi-chun said again, "If you are purely looking for trouble, then I will accompany you to the end. The next time I need anything, I will take the initiative to inform you. If you really think that my world is beautiful, then I can rent you a place or even sell you a building after it's fully open." Lei Zhenghongfang was still silent, but there were some changes in his eyes. There was something in Zi-chun's world that he was interested in, but he didn't know what it was exactly. Zi-chun looked at the sun in the sky and said, "I say, no one from your family has come for so long. Don't tell me they have completely given up on you?" The fear that had just disappeared from Lei Zhenghongfang's face appeared again. He quickly said, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. Wait a little longer, they will be here soon." Lei Zhenghongfang didn't dare to think about how to take revenge. He just wanted to leave this place quickly and get away from this demon. Chiu Shuang and Xiangxiao came. The moment he saw the two, Lei Zhenghongfang's eyes lit up. A sense of familiarity that he had never felt before emerged from his heart. He wanted to shout, but he didn't dare. He carefully looked at Zi-chun. A smile appeared on Zi-chun's face. "Your life is saved. This is what you want, but you have to let go of my young master first," Chiu Shuang said as she held a spirit ring in her hand. Zi-chun waved his hand. Lei Zhang Hongfang felt as if he had been granted amnesty and quickly walked forward. Such a straightforward action stunned Qiu Shuang. According to her original guess, perhaps the two sides would have to negotiate. Who knew that it would go so smoothly? However, she quickly understood. If Ziqin didn't get what he wanted, then the three of them would have to stay this time. Lei Zhang Hongfang walked forward. Xiang Tsao quickly went forward and took out a healing elixir with 5 lines on it. He signaled for Lei Zhang Hongfang to swallow it quickly. Seeing this, Ziqian was a little envious. He hadn't even eaten a 5-star elixir before. Qiu Shuang threw the spirit ring to Ziqin. Ziqin caught the ownerless spirit ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. The things he asked for were all the same, and there were even 2 extra things inside. One was the talisman paper that he didn't mention, and the other was a sealed jade box. It was obviously the ink used to draw talismans. The anger that rose in his heart because of the other party's late arrival disappeared when he saw these 2 things. He looked at Qiu Shuang and said, "Thank you, boss. We look forward to your next visit." Qiu Shuang looked at the smiling Ziqin, but didn't know what to say. This boss's attitude had changed too much. Now that she recalled his expression when he drew his blade, she still felt a chill run down her spine. Lei Zhang Hongfang, whose body was glowing because he had swallowed the elixir, did not dare to stay here for a moment longer. Looking at the 3 people leaving in a hurry, Ziqian's smile did not fade. This was a big harvest. However, after this there might be more trouble. As long as the other party followed the rules, Ziqian was not afraid at all. The tree hall that had disappeared due to the energy wave grew again, and its scale was even larger. Looking at this tree hall, many people's expressions were extremely strange. Ziqin had actually earned 16 boxes of Tianseng tea, leaves from such an ordinary tree hall. However, some people were waiting to see a joke, or rather, waiting for the Lei Zhang family's revenge. After all, this time, the Lei Zhang family had suffered a great loss. It was impossible for them to let it go so easily. Perhaps the moment Lei Zhang Hongfang left, a destructive force would descend. However, what made people feel a little regretful was that although Lei Zhang Hongfang had left the Tianwu world, the Lei Zhang family's revenge still had not come. Could it be that they are waiting to leave the Tianwu star region and ensure their safety? Only then will the destructive force appear? Some people thought so in their hearts. However, 2 hours for hours, even after an entire day had passed, the Lei Zhang family's revenge force still had not come. In fact, the entire Lei Zhang family was incomparably calm. They didn't seem to have suffered a great loss. This attitude puzzled many people. Chapter 3461. On the way back, Lei Zhang Hongfang didn't dare to say a word. He always felt that Ziqian was watching him in the dark. Once he did something extreme, he would be killed in the next moment. Only when he reached the Lei Zhang family's territory did he relax completely. He asked Qiu Shuang the Tianwu starfield should have been destroyed by now, right? Qiu Shuang was silent. No. Lei Zhang Hongfang said in disbelief, "I suffered such a big loss and was almost killed. How could no one avenge me? Young master, you haven't recovered from your injuries yet. Let's go back and treat your wounds first." Vanilla said, "Where's my mother? I'm going to find her. She will definitely avenge me." Lei Zhang Hongfang was unwilling to accept that he had almost lost his life this time, so he went back to the family to find his mother. Of course, he cleverly avoided his father, who might come to find him. "Mother, you must avenge me. That Ziqian really wanted to kill me." As soon as he entered the room, Lei Zhang Hongfang began to cry like a child who had never grown up. Lu Hanlin's eyes were filled with regret. Looking at Lei Zhang Hongfang's tattered clothes, she could imagine the pain he had suffered. In an instant, her eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. However, when she recalled the stern warning from the head of the family, she had to suppress the anger in her heart. "Hong Air, don't go out for now. I will find a way to deal with that Zichen. Lu Hanlin said. Mother, you don't want to avenge me? Lei Zhang Hongfang said disappointedly. Then I'll go find my brother. I believe he will avenge me. Lu Hanlin, who was doting on her son, immediately changed her expression and said, Don't disturb your brother. He is participating in the extreme core assessment. He can't be distracted. But, Mother, are we just going to let this go? Your son was beaten up for nothing, and those resources were given to him for nothing? And our Lei Zhang family's reputation. How could we be humiliated like this? Lei Zhang Hongfang was still unwilling. Lu Hanlin said, Of course we will avenge him. But before that, tell Mother why you went to that Zi Chen's world. Zi Chen didn't receive any retaliation from the Lei Zhang family. He didn't even receive any provocation. It was like this for several days. He found it a little strange, but he didn't ask why. With the Thunder Earth Saint's reputation, Zi Chen was not worried that someone would ignore the rules and come find trouble with him. As long as it was within the rules, with his battle strength, he could deal with almost any trouble. The fact that no one from the Lei Zhang family came seemed to be out of the expectations of those powers as well. The project that was originally stopped continued. It could be said that the Tianwu world had regained its former stability. Because of this battle, its popularity had even increased. The only bad thing was that there were rumors that Zi Qin had single-handedly destroyed the Lei Zhang family's spirit and prestige. In this news, there were suspicions that it was trying to elevate Zi Chen's status and belittle the Lei Zhang family. It was even more likely that it was trying to sow discord. Zi Qin no longer paid attention to what was happening in the outside world. He stayed in his room in the Tianwu world and began to practice the soul-devouring ghost technique. In his knowledge sea, Zi Chen's soul appeared. With a thought, a black vortex appeared above his body. The vortex completely enveloped his body and began to disintegrate his soul. Zi Chen felt intense pain, and his soul seemed to be on the verge of collapse. His soul was constantly being disintegrated by the vortex, and then disintegrated into the vortex. There was no new soul being produced at all. Condensation? It didn't exist at all. It was completely obliterated. When Zi Chen stopped operating, it was as if he had gone through a great battle, and his soul had become extremely weak. His first cultivation had ended in failure. If Zi Chen had continued to persist, his soul would have been completely obliterated. It would have been considered suicide. When he opened his eyes, Zi Chen began to recover his obliterated soul. The first failure had given him a deeper understanding of the soul-devouring ghost technique. At the same time, it had also let him know how difficult it was. After his soul had completely recovered, Zi Chen had a shiny thunder fruit in his hand. This was given to him by the Tree of Lightning. There were a total of 2 fruits. Previously, Zi Chen had already tried it. It was almost impossible to complete the first condensation with the strength of his soul. Therefore, he needed to borrow the power of the fruit. The first thunder fruit turned into energy and entered Zi Chen's knowledge sea, completely enveloping his soul. Above his soul, there was an additional layer of protective light. The vortex appeared and began to disintegrate Zi Chen's soul. Zi Chen endured the pain and controlled the first scattered soul power to fly into the vortex. The power of the thunder fruit played a huge role. The vortex rotated at high speed. In addition to the terrifying aura, there were also the screams of malicious ghosts. It was as if there were countless ghosts hidden in the vortex that lived by devouring souls. They were eyeing the wisp of soul power covetously. When the terrifying tearing force came, the power of the thunder fruit would dissipate a little to replace the consumption of the soul. Halfway through, the power of the fruit was about to disappear. Zi Chen did not hesitate to refine the second fruit. The injection of new power protected Zi Chen's soul and successfully completed the first condensation of the ghost soul refining technique. The first wisp of soul power appeared below the vortex. However, it was different from Zi-Chen's golden soul. The condensed soul was actually black. However, it was extremely pure, even purer than the golden soul. Zi-Chen could clearly feel the power of this black soul. However, at the same time, it consumed a lot of soul power. During the condensation process, 2/3 of his supposedly perfect soul was consumed during the refinement. The 2 thunder fruits disappeared just like that. They only helped Zi-Chen complete the condensation of the first wisp of soul. However, everything was difficult at the beginning. With this first wisp of soul power, Zi-Chen's subsequent condensation was no longer in danger, although it was still painful. Even if all the souls were annihilated and disappeared, Zi-Chen still had that wisp of black soul which could guarantee that he would not die. The Leijing family seemed to be completely silent. The Tianwu world was surprisingly quiet. The cooperating forces became more active. Most of them had core disciples behind them, so they were very clear about Zi-Chen's connections in certain aspects. This time, the Leijing family did not pursue this matter. Perhaps it was related to that powerful existence. The Tianwu world began to develop normally. At the same time, Zhou Lina took out a portion of the Holy Thunder demon bone. When they saw the demon bones, many people's faces were filled with shock. Some people even expressed that they could buy it at a high price. This kind of thing was in short supply in the outer domain. Zhou Lina naturally did not agree. These were used to attract popularity. Some of them needed to be refined into real Holy Spirit battle weapons to be sold, and some of them were sold in an auction. The Tianwu world began to develop rapidly. The spiritual power contained in the world became denser and denser. After spending several months, Zi-Chen successfully condensed all of his soul. Chapter 3462. Zhou Lina's cultivation level wasn't high, but as she came into contact with more factions, her horizons were getting wider and wider. Through comparison and analysis, she found many extremely valuable sacred thunder demon bones and kept them for future use. As for the rest, she gave them to other factions to refine weapons. The entire Tianwu world was ruled by the king of ancient trees. Its main body was in the core tree city, and it controlled the absorption of the world ancient trees' spiritual energy. As the ancient trees continuously absorbed the power of lightning from the void, they gradually underwent some changes and bore fruits with different abilities. Although their grades were still low, the final form of these ancient trees would surprise everyone with the accumulation of time. Apart from that, there was another type of creature underground, which was the dark heavenly ant. They hid underground and rarely appeared. As the various underground spirit veins recovered, they were also the first to benefit. They were constantly receiving the baptism of lightning from the void. A portion of them died under the power of the lightning, but the portion that survived became even stronger. The mother nest still existed, but the xenogeneic creatures lived in another dimension. This was Zi-Chen's hidden strength. Almost no one knew about it. Although its current combat power was negligible, it would definitely become a powerful force in a few years. As for time, Zi-Chen had plenty of it. Zi-Chen's soul had completely turned black. His sea of consciousness was like the night, and it carried an oppressive aura. The fully condensed black soul was less than 1/3 of the previous one, but in terms of purity and strength, it was far more powerful than before. It could be said that his soul had reached a new level. Right now, he just needed to constantly replenish it. However, as the soul power was absorbed, these foreign souls would first pass through the black vortex above his head. After the black vortex refined them, they would then be absorbed by Zi-Chen's soul. Less than 10% of the foreign souls absorbed would remain. The path of soul growth would be extremely difficult, but every soul absorbed was the purest and didn't require any additional refining. The current strength of his soul was enough for Zi-Chen to become a sacred talisman master. Therefore, before that, he needed to learn how to draw talismans. He didn't know if it was because of their background or because they were really worried that he would kill them, but the Lei Zheng family gave him a very detailed introduction to the holy talisman. In many places, there were additional explanations that were easy to understand at a glance. What Ziqin didn't know was that those big families all had their own set of cultivation methods that were passed down and perfected from generation to generation. It was already the fastest way for someone to enter the sect. The holy talisman was somewhat similar to the spiritual array. One required the drawing of an array, while the other required the holy brush to leave behind a powerful force on a special talisman paper. It wasn't that difficult, as long as one's soul was strong enough. In addition, he would practice a lot. After familiarizing himself with the initial solution, Ziqin began to practice drawing talismans. The brush used to draw the talisman was called the holy talisman brush. It was made from the hair of a special kind of beast. The ink used to draw talismans was condensed from a special type of blood, and it contained an extremely powerful energy. The talisman paper was also made of special materials. In the early stages, these three things were indispensable, just like how the thunder fruit was indispensable to the dark, ghost-devouring soul technique. Only through these three mediums could the power of the holy talisman be activated. As one's level increased, these things could gradually be replaced. However, to Ziqin, who had yet to enter the sect, any of these things were extremely far away. Other than that, Ziqin had also obtained 3 types of talismans. The first was the Holy Thunder Talisman. It was mainly used for attacking, and there were no grades. It only depended on the level of the Sacred Talisman Master. For example, if the Sacred Talisman Master was a 4-star Soul Master, then the Holy Thunder Talisman he wrote would be at the 4-star level. This was the most common type of talisman, and it was also the one that was used the most. The second type was a common defensive talisman. It was similar to the offensive Holy Thunder Talisman. If Ziqin could reach the 4-star Sacred Talisman Master Realm, then the defensive Holy Talisman he wrote would be at the 4-star level. The last type was a grade talisman called the Furious Thunder Roar. It belonged to the 4-star level of Sacred Talisman. Under normal circumstances, only sacred spirits at the 7-star level and above could reach this level. Ziqin was not even a 1-star Sacred Talisman Master, so he was naturally very far away from reaching the 4-star level. Therefore, he could only try to write the Holy Thunder Talisman now. After memorizing the strokes of the Holy Thunder Talisman, Ziqin began to write. He first focused and calmed down. After he was completely relaxed, he began to write. He added ink, wrote, and finished in one go. Looking at the handwriting on the talisman, Ziqin was very satisfied. On the talisman, there were specks of light, surging with a strong aura. That's it. Feeling the power on the talisman, Ziqin was a little surprised. Didn't they say it was very difficult? Ziqin picked up the talisman. Before he could crush it, the talisman collapsed on its own. A strong wave of energy spread out, causing the treehouse to shake. I failed. It's the power contained in the ink. Ziqin soon found out the reason. He had only activated the power in the ink, but not the talisman. It was a complete failure. The second time he completed the first stroke, but still failed. The third time. The fourth time. The fifth time. After failing 10 times in a row, Ziqin slowed down. Although the wave of energy caused the treehouse to collapse twice, Ziqin gradually found the way. For example, the power of the talisman he wrote was only on the surface. It was not hidden in the talisman. His essence, qi, and spirit could not be stored and would naturally collapse. Then, Ziqin slowed down and carefully used his soul to control the injection of power. The number of failures was still increasing, and the power of the talisman was also increasing. On the 30th try, Ziqin finally completed the first talisman. The power of the pen, ink, and paper could be considered to have merged, but it could only be considered a success. It was still very far away from reaching the 1-star level. Ziqin looked at the talisman. More than half of the talisman had been consumed. Back then, the Lei Zheng family had only given him 50 talismans. Putting the successful talisman aside, Ziqin began to recover the consumed soul. Drawing talismans consumed too much soul power. After refining a soul crystal and recovering the consumed soul power, Ziqin continued to draw talismans. This time he was more careful and focused. Ziqin took 4 days to draw the last 20 talisman papers. Just as the 50th talisman was about to be consumed, Ziqin finished the last stroke, and the talisman in front of him lit up with lightning. The talisman runes on it began to glow, and a tyrannical fluctuation was released. The complete Holy Thunder talisman was finally completed. At this point, Ziqin had become a 1-star sacred talisman master. Chapter 3463. In just 10 days, he had the ability of a 1-star Saint Talisman Master. It could be said to be godly speed. Once news of this spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Ziqin glanced at the talisman paper and was very satisfied. The runes on the talisman paper were glowing, and there was a flickering pattern, indicating the quality of the talisman paper. It seems that I'm now equivalent to a 1-star Saint Talisman Master. Ziqin smiled. But I should be the weakest Saint Talisman Master. He only knew how to write one type of Holy Thunder talisman, which was considered a 1-star beginner. There's no more talisman and ink. Ziqin said helplessly, I have to buy some. Putting away the talisman paper, Ziqin left the room and went to find Zhou to inform her of his needs. Zhou had guessed that Ziqin wanted to become a Saint Talisman Master last time, but she didn't expect him to start buying the things that a Saint Talisman Master needed so soon. She shook her head and said, according to the current scale of our world, we can't make such a high-level thing. Ziqin said, there's no trading place in Ganhai City. Zhou said, there is, but the price is extremely high and the quality is not very good. There's none in our industry? Ziqin was very puzzled. One must know that he had directly taken over all the industries of Ganhai City. According to Ganhai City's strength and status, they should have dabbled in this industry. Zhou shook her head and said, only low-level ones. The saint level has not dabbled in them. Moreover, when we took over Ganhai Sanctuary, some forces had already quietly pulled them away. Looking at the frowning Ziqin, Zhou said, the status of a Saint Talisman Master is extremely high. It is said that every Saint Talisman Master with potential can become a core disciple. I think you should go to the core area to take a look. There must be something you need there. Ziqin slapped his forehead and suddenly understood. The core area must have everything. As a core disciple, he should go there first to take a look if he needed any resources. After asking Zhou if anyone had come looking for trouble, Ziqin decided to head to the core city. Originally, the storm with the Lei Zheng family had gradually passed. However, it seems that someone has been deliberately stirring up trouble recently. They've been constantly promoting you in the outer regions. It seems like it's for your own good, but in reality, they want to provoke the Lei Zheng family's anger. Zhou said. A cold look appeared on Ziqin's face. It must be those two families. You don't have to worry about this matter. I'll go to their residence. After returning to the core city, Ziqin once again looked for Grace and asked about the core disciples of the Hu and Xian families. The other party looked at Ziqin and smiled meaningfully. I don't know if they expected you to do this, but those core disciples left a few days ago. They all left. Ziqin was surprised. There should be 2 or 3 7-stars overseeing this place. At present, Ziqin could only fight against 6 stars. 7 stars obviously didn't have the strength. He could only snort and say, they ran fast. How can it not be fast? Grace smiled. Everyone has heard about what you did outside. You even dared to beat up the Lei Zheng family. Who would dare to provoke you? Ziqin said. On the surface, no one provoked me, but in the dark they kept making small moves. Grace helplessly spread out her hands and said, "This is power." Then Grace said, "I haven't congratulated you for breaking through to the next realm in just a few years. Did you look for me today for this matter?" Looking at her expression, Zichen said, "Actually, there are two more things. One is more important, and the other is to ask." "Oh, what is it?" Grace asked curiously. "Let's talk about the unimportant first. I want to ask if we sell talisman paper here." Grace obviously knew something about Zichen and said, "Do you really want to try drawing talismans?" Zichen nodded and said, "Isn't it good to become a divine talisman master?" Grace said, "Of course it's good, but you won't have any great achievements in the future. Moreover, the talisman paper you condense can't protect you at all. If you have a family, you can leave it as a reward for the younger generation. If you don't have a family, you won't be able to use a lot of energy. It's better to spend time on cultivation." Hearing what Grace said, Zichen smiled slightly and said, "That's not necessarily true. The current me is comparable to a 1-star divine talisman master." "Are you sure?" Grace looked at Zichen with some surprise. "Of course." Zichen said, "I used a total of 50 talisman papers, but I only succeeded once." "Really?" Grace still couldn't believe it. Zichen could only take out the 1-star divine thunder talisman and give it to her. Looking at the 1-star divine thunder talisman, Lena stared at Zichen. Her gaze made Zichen's hair stand on end. "Is there a problem? Are you sure you only used 50 talisman papers to personally draw this 1-star divine thunder talisman?" Grace asked again, clearly in disbelief. Zichen said helplessly, "I say you should know the situation of my world best, right? There doesn't seem to be a second divine talisman master, right? Moreover, the Leijing family only gave me 50 talisman papers last time. This time, I came to ask you where you can buy talisman papers and holy ink. I want to buy some back. Come, quickly follow me." As soon as Zichen finished speaking, Grace dragged Zichen to a certain place. "Where are we going?" Zichen asked in surprise. "If you really become a divine talisman master, then why buy talisman papers? Just follow me to register. The talisman papers and holy ink will be provided to you free of charge," Grace said while dragging Zichen. "There's such a good thing." Zichen's eyes lit up. "In terms of nurturing divine talisman masters, which family can't compare to the core city? As long as you can pass the test, I guarantee that you will receive great benefits." Grace suddenly turned around and stared at Zichen. "If you can't pass the test, it means that you are lying and you'll be punished. So do you dare to go?" Zichen said, "Why wouldn't I dare?" Originally, Zichen wanted to buy some things. Now that there were benefits to be had, he naturally wouldn't miss it. As for the talisman drawing ability, Zichen knew how to do it. After all, he had already wasted 50 expensive talisman papers. Grace was a little excited because if what Zichen said was true, then his talent in the divine talisman Tao was too terrifying. Although ordinary divine talisman masters weren't very useful, those with terrifying talent were a different story. One must know that in the Holy Thunder clan, all divine talisman masters had treatment comparable to that of a core disciple. Dragging Zichen along, Grace arrived at the talisman hall. Chapter 3464. Unauthorized people are not allowed in. Since when was there a rule? Grace stopped and stared at the youth. "Fangcheng, can you explain it to me?" Fangcheng didn't look at Grace. Instead, he stared at Zichen and said coldly, "You're here to buy talisman paper, right? Wait patiently. There's a Saint Talisman Master taking the test inside." Zichen didn't know Fangcheng, but he could clearly feel the hostility from him. At this moment, Fangcheng narrowed his eyes and glanced at Zichen. Zichen suddenly understood. Grace was still holding his hand. He quickly let go. Grace obviously didn't notice this and said to Fangcheng, "That's good. We're also here for the test. Move aside. Test? Fan Cheng's mouth flashed with disdain. Is it this guy? He must have cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Fan Cheng, are you going to move aside or not? Grace's face was filled with anger. Master Meng brought his disciple here and is preparing for the test. No one is allowed to disturb him. Fan Cheng's attitude was firm. Move aside. I've said that we're also here for the test. You have no right to stop us. Grace was really angry. Grace, this is the Talisman Hall. Everyone has to abide by the rules. The Saint Talisman Master test requires absolute silence. If the test is affected because of your appearance, can you bear the responsibility? Fan Cheng said in a deep voice, Grace, I'm doing this for your own good. Grace said coldly, Call me Grace. I'm not familiar with you. Who's making a ruckus outside? Suddenly, an old voice sounded from the Talisman Hall. Grandpa Talisman, it's me. I'm here for the test. Grace immediately said, It's you. You're really messing around. Another person walked out of the hall. It was a white-haired old man wearing a long robe. When he saw Grace, he revealed a kind smile. It's not me, it's him. Grace immediately stepped forward and tugged at the old man's sleeve. She said, He is Zichen. He can already draw a 1-star Sacred Thunder Talisman. I brought him to participate in the 1-star Sacred Talisman Master Examination. Then Grace said, Zichen, this is Grandpa Talisman. He's the Vice Hall Master of the Talisman Hall, and he's also the strongest 6-star Saint Talisman Master in our Holy Thunder Clan. Zichen immediately bowed to the old man. Greetings, Grandpa Fu. The old man waved his hand and said with a smile, Just call me Fu Lao or Hall Master Fu. I can't afford to be called Grandpa Fu. If I'm not wrong, you're the Zichen that's the talk of the town amongst the core disciples, right? That's me. When Fan Cheng heard this, his expression changed instantly. Of course, he had heard of Zichen's name before. It could be said that Zichen had never stopped since he came to the Holy Thunder Clan. First, he fought for a spot as a core disciple. Then he fought against those of a higher level. After going out for a while, he came back and blocked the doors of the Hu and Xian families' core disciples. It was said that he had offended the Lei Zheng family this time. The old man looked at Zichen and nodded slightly with a smile. But in the next moment, there seemed to be a mysterious force that shrouded Zichen's body. Sensing this force, Zichen's black soul was full of vigilance. It automatically operated and formed a defense in his sea of consciousness. Fu Lao asked, May I know what realm Zichen is at now? 4-star, Sacred Spirit. Obviously, the other party had already sensed his realm, but he still asked. Zichen was a little puzzled, but he still answered honestly. Fu Lao said with a smile, This is interesting. Today, there's another person taking the examination. He's also a 4-star Sacred Spirit. You guys can try together. As the group entered the Great Hall, Zichen felt a strange fluctuation in the Great Hall. His spiritual strength seemed to be more active in this place. There were 2 people in the hall. One was an old man, and the other was a young man. The 2 of them had clearly overheard the previous conversation and were now looking at Zichen. The old man just glanced at Zichen and lost interest. The young man, on the other hand, kept staring at Zichen with an unfriendly gaze. Hall Master, let's start quickly. The old man urged. Our Lei Zheng family has a lot of things to do. Hong Yi has to go to the Fu Forest to train, so things are more urgent. Although Fu Lao was only the Vice Hall Master, he had been in charge here for many years. The Hall Master had not appeared for many years. Over time, everyone who came here deliberately hid the word vice. Zichen's expression changed a little. These 2 people were actually from the Lei Zheng family. This was a little unexpected. The unfriendly gaze of the young man from before was understandable. Fu Lao chuckled. Don't worry, there's another one. Today, the 2 of them will be tested together. The old man from the Lejeune family was obviously dissatisfied. He looked back at Zichen and said, "Where did this little kid come from? You actually want to join in the fun at this time? Look at how young you are. How many days have you been refining talismans?" Zichen did not seem to hear the sarcasm in the old man's words and replied, "If I count, it should be more than 10 days. The old man was stunned. He obviously did not expect Zichen to answer like this. Even Fu Lao was stunned. More than 10 days? Little kid, you're not joking, right? The old man's face showed anger. "Do you know where this is? How dare you come here and make trouble?" Zichen is not making trouble. This is the Holy Thunder talisman he drew. Grace immediately took out the talisman paper. I saw it. The energy level has reached 1 star. Oh, let me see. Grace handed the first-grade talisman to Fu Lao. Fu Lao looked at the talisman on it and nodded. It seems that it really has reached 1 star. Old Meng, take a look. Old Meng from the Lejeune family stepped forward and took the talisman paper. He glanced at it and said coldly to Zichen, "Kid, this is the Lejeune family's unique holy talisman paper. Where did you get it?" The Lejeune family's talismans had their own unique characteristics. Outsiders might not be able to see it, but as a guest elder of the Lejeune family, Old Meng could naturally recognize it at a glance. "Someone gave it to me," Zichen said. "Nonsense. The Lejeune family's talismans are never sold to outsiders. Kid, tell me, did you steal it?" Old Meng's eyes became incomparably cold. Zichen said helplessly, "Someone called Lejeune Hongfang gave it to me. If you don't believe me, you can ask him." Zichen looked at Lejeune Hongye. Lejeune Hongye's eyes were incomparably cold and filled with killing intent. Old Meng obviously did not know this, and looked at Lejeune Hongye with a questioning gaze. Lejeune Hongye did not speak, so he must be communicating with his soul. Old Meng's face first changed, then anger appeared in his eyes. This guy really did not draw talismans for a few days. "I heard that you made our Lejeune family suffer a lot last time. Since you're here for the assessment today, why don't we compete?" Chapter 3465. Lejeune Hongye stared at Zichen with a disdainful smile on his face. His expression was very arrogant. Zichen didn't like his attitude and said, "Okay, I haven't beaten anyone in a long time. Let's go out and practice." Lejeune Hongye's mouth twitched. He was only a 4-star Saint Spirit. How could he be Zichen's opponent? Although his cousin, Lejeune Hongfang, wasn't very talented in the family, the 2 maids beside him were real experts. Lejeune Hongye naturally wasn't a match for them. However, he obviously wouldn't show his fear at this time. He said, disdainfully, "This is the Talisman Hall. What's the point of fighting and killing? Since you and I are both here to participate in the Saint Talisman Master Exam, why don't we compete in the Saint Talisman Dao?" Seeing Zichen's hesitant expression, Lejeune Hongye said, "What, you don't dare to?" "Don't worry, I won't make it too difficult for you. If you lose, I'll have to trouble you to personally return the things you took from the Lejeune family and apologize to the Lejeune family." Lejeune Hongye's face revealed a cold smile. "Of course, to show your sincerity, you have to kneel." Looking at the silent Zichen, he continued, "Of course, you can choose not to agree. You just have to say that you're not worthy. Oh, I remember that you're a core disciple. Back then, you used your connections to directly violate the rules and obtain the Thunder Room. You can let me use it. You can put some useless things in it and use it as a grocery store." Grace, who was full of confidence in Zichen before, sent a voice transmission. "Zichen, you mustn't agree. This guy must be a Saint Talisman Master, specially trained by the Lejeune family. His attainments in the Saint Talisman Dao are extremely high. What's the content of the exam?" Zichen asked through voice transmission. 3 chances. As long as you can draw a 1-star Saint Talisman, you'll pass." Grace sent a voice transmission. Zichen, I believe that you can definitely become a one-star Saint Talisman Master. However, you mustn't agree to compete with the Leizheng family. My family has a good relationship with Grandpa Talisman, so I sent a message to Grandpa Talisman to stop the fight. Zichen didn't respond to Grace. Instead, he looked at Leizheng Hongye and said, "Although your provocation is very vulgar, I also feel that it is necessary to compete with you. After all, in my impression, the Leizheng family is very rich." Leizheng Hongye, who previously had a smile on his face, heard Zichen's words, and his face turned gloomy. What did he mean by very rich? Did he think that he would definitely win? "Tell me, what can you give me if you lose?" Zichen smiled and said, "I'm betting my dignity. You have to take out something decent, or don't blame me for not agreeing." Zichen stretched out a finger. "I'm only giving you one chance to name your price. Don't let me down. Low-grade soul-gathering crystal." Leizheng Hongye sneered. "If I lose, I'll give you a piece of low-grade soul-gathering crystal." Zichen heard and said disdainfully, "Speaking of which, are you from the Leizheng family? You're only betting a piece of low-grade soul-gathering crystal. Are you not sincere? Look at Leizheng Hongfang. How magnanimous is he?" Soon, Zichen realized that Leizheng Hongye was looking at him as if he was an idiot. Even the way Grace looked at him became strange. Zichen was startled and said, "What, am I wrong?" Leizheng Hongye said unceremoniously, "You idiot, you really look like you haven't seen the world." Zichen's eyes were filled with anger. What did he mean by haven't seen the world? Even if he hadn't heard of soul-gathering crystal, he should know that low-grade was the worst. At this moment, Fu Lao coughed lightly and said, "Zichen, the soul-gathering crystal is not a consumable item. To a Saint Talisman Master, it's a treasure. I'm ashamed to say that I'm only using a middle-grade, soul-gathering crystal now." Zichen was dumbfounded when he heard this. A Saint Talisman Master's treasure? Looking at Zichen's ignorant look, Leizheng Hongye mocked disdainfully, "A piece of soul-gathering crystal is enough to use for a lifetime. Although mine is only low-grade and of ordinary quality, its value is so high that it can scare you to death. As long as you refine it, the soul power between heaven and earth will gather at all times. There's no need to deliberately cultivate it all, and your soul will strengthen on its own." Zichen's eyes lit up when he heard this. Because he cultivated the dark ghost soul devouring technique, the soul power he absorbed would be refined many times, and less than 1 out of 10 would remain. The consumption was huge. If he had the soul-gathering crystal, then he wouldn't have to worry about his soul at all, because the dark ghost soul devouring technique could refine the absorbed soul on its own. It was true that he didn't need to cultivate to continuously strengthen his soul. This would save Zichen a lot of time. Zichen immediately said, "All right, I'll kindly accept your low-grade, soul-gathering crystal." Leizheng Hongye sneered, "Then let's see what you're capable of." "Zichen, you're too reckless." Leizheng Hongye is obviously very confident, which is why he took out a low-grade, soul-gathering crystal to bet. That thing's value is too high. Even in the Leizheng family, there are only a few pieces. One piece can be exchanged for a small pile of fiend holy lightning bones. Grace transmitted again, "He never thought that you would win. He's only worried that you won't compete with him. His goal is to humiliate you." Zichen obviously knew this, but he still wanted to gamble because the soul-gathering crystal was too tempting for him. "Since both of you have agreed, then I'll be your witness." Fu Lao chuckled and said, "The next test is very simple. There are 3 chances. As long as you can draw a 1-star Saint Talisman, you pass the test and become a 1-star Saint Talisman Master. Then how will the winner be determined?" Leizheng Hongye asked. Before Fu Lao could speak, the Leizheng family's guest elder, Meng Shi, said, "You don't have to worry about that. The Talisman Hall naturally has a way to determine the winner. The Saint Talisman Master Competition is a competition of comprehension. Fong Cheng walked over and said respectfully, "Hall Master, everything is ready." Fu Lao nodded and signaled for the two to enter the test. There were 2 rooms. Zi Chen and Lei Zhenghongye each entered one. The test rooms were the same, and the paper and ink were the same. As for the talisman inscribed, it was the Holy Thunder Talisman. For many Saint Talisman Masters, the first talisman they learned was the Holy Thunder Talisman. Therefore, even if it was a comparison, it would still be very easy. Chapter 3466. After entering the room, the door closed automatically. Zi Chen felt that his soul power had become more active. The room was very empty with only a table. On the table were 3 golden talisman papers and a sacred ink that was emitting light. Zi Chen walked forward and vaguely heard a voice calling him. "Zi Chen, Zi Chen." Hearing this voice, Zi Chen looked around but did not see anyone. He was a little puzzled as to who was calling him. "Zi Chen, it's me." As Zi Chen walked to the side of the table, the voice became clearer. It seemed to be familiar, but also very strange. "What's going on?" Zi Chen furrowed his brow. At this moment, more voices entered his sea of consciousness. During this time, there were even wisps of soul power entering his sea of consciousness and forming waves. More noises were heard. There were quarrels, cheers, and shouts. Some were familiar, some were unfamiliar. Under such circumstances, Zi Chen could not concentrate on drawing talismans. The next moment, he understood the reason. It seemed that this was one of the tests. It was to let him calm his mind in a chaotic environment. No wonder he was given 3 chances. At this moment, Lei Zhenghongye had already walked to the table. After taking out a sacred brush, he smiled proudly. "Zi Chen, just wait to be embarrassed. Don't fail to draw a talisman." In his sea of consciousness, a mark spread out and turned into a pure soul light shield, protecting his soul. The interference from the outside world was all blocked by the light shield. Lei Zhenghongye smiled proudly and began to concentrate on drawing talismans. Drawing talismans required concentration. Soul interference had a great impact. Before coming, Meng Shi had specially given him a protection mark, just in case. Originally, Lei Zhenghongye had planned to use his own strength to try twice. If he did not succeed, then he would use the protection mark. Now that there was a bet, he naturally had to give it his all. This was also where his confidence came from. According to the success rate of the previous Saint Talisman Master Test, more than 50% of the people failed the first time, 45% of the people who completed 1 talisman, less than 10% of the people who completed 2 talismans, and almost none of the people who completed 3 talismans. Therefore, Zi Chen had lost from the very beginning. Just as Lei Zhenghongye started to draw the talisman, Zi Chen also took out his sacred talisman brush. However, the noise around him was getting louder and louder, and the interference was becoming more and more obvious. Under such circumstances, the talisman drawing would most likely fail. Zi Chen frowned and said, "So noisy." In the next moment, the black vortex above his black soul began to spin. The soul voices that came from all directions were swallowed by the vortex. In the blink of an eye, Zi Chen's soul world became incomparably quiet. He raised his head and looked at the black vortex with a smile on his face. Next, he picked up the brush and drew talismans. Because this was a competition, there would be a great opportunity if he won. Therefore, he was very focused. His black soul strength spread out in the surroundings, allowing him to control everything. Each stroke was slow but steady. When the last stroke was finished, the talisman lit up. A rune appeared on the talisman paper. At the same time, a tyrannical wave of energy spread out. The first success. Zi Chen was very satisfied with this talisman. Its energy fluctuation was much stronger than the one in Grace's hand. This meant that Zi Chen had become a first-grade sacred talisman master. However, for the sake of the competition, he had to be more focused. He moved the brush and began to draw the second talisman. This time it took more time, but the quality was also better. Then he drew the third one. Zichen found that his soul seemed to be very suitable for drawing talismans. He was getting more and more handy. Not only was the third time a success, but the quality was also higher. After 3 talismans were completed, Zichen heaved a sigh of relief. He had already used all his strength. As for whether he could win in the end, it would depend on Fu Lao's final evaluation. Of course, if Lei Jinghongye only succeeded in drawing 2, then he would win. When Zichen walked out, he saw that Lei Jinghongye was already standing there. Although his face was extremely pale, his face was brimming with unconcealable pride. Seeing Zichen appear, Lei Jinghongye said indifferently, "I thought you were so scared that you didn't dare to come out." Zichen glanced at him and didn't say anything. In fact, he was also a little nervous and uneasy in his heart. "Looking at your normal complexion, you didn't even use your soul. Did you not succeed in drawing even one?" Lei Jinghongye laughed disdainfully, "And I completed all 3. Even the calmest Zi Chen's expression changed at this moment. If the other party also completed 3, then the next step would be to compare the quality. Seeing the change in Zi Chen's expression, Lei Jinghongye said, "It seems so. Then I'll have to trouble Fu Lao to announce the winner?" Then he looked at Zi Chen and said, "Although I'm very busy every day, I'll give you some face. When you kneel in front of the Lei Jing family, I'll definitely take the time to watch." Zi Chen said indifferently, "Isn't it just 3 talismans? What's there to be proud of? The winner hasn't been decided yet. You still dare to be stubborn. Wait for you." Lei Jinghongye was about to mock Zi Chen, but when he saw the talismans that Fang Qing took out, his expression changed. 3? Did you also succeed?" Zi Chen said, "Isn't it just 3 holy thunder talismans? Is it that difficult?" Seeing Zi Chen's casual expression, Lei Jinghongye snorted, "What are you so proud of? Since it's all 3, then we'll determine the winner according to the quality." Zi Chen ignored him. At this moment, he was also a little nervous. Fu Lao was holding Lei Jinghongye's 3 talismans and looking at them. He kept nodding, looking very satisfied. It's very rare to see all 3 successful attempts. I didn't expect to meet 2 today. Fu Lao looked at one of the talismans and said, "This one is the strongest. Although it's not as strong as a 2-star talisman, it's not far away. I believe that after going back and practicing, it won't be long before I can see a 2-star holy talisman master." Hearing Fu Lao praising his disciple, Master Meng nodded, feeling proud. "Old Meng, take a look." Fu Lao handed the 3 talismans to Master Meng, then took Zi Chen's talisman from Fang Cheng and looked at it carefully. Not bad at all. It was the same evaluation, and he was also very satisfied. The power contained in each of the 3 talismans is stronger than the previous one. It's comparable to Lei Jinghongye's. "Old Meng, take a look at this." When the 3 talismans were in Master Meng's hands, he could naturally tell if they were good or bad. He nodded and said, "You have some skills. Your spiritual power is almost comparable to Hongye's, but there's still a gap. Take this one, for example. Its spiritual power is almost on par with Hongye's Holy Thunder Talisman." Chapter 3467. Hearing Master Meng's words, Zi Chen's expression changed instantly. He lost just like that? On the other hand, Lei Jinghongye revealed a mocking smile. "It seems that I have to go back and prepare. When the time comes, I'll call more people over. Remember, you have to kneel and apologize." Zi Chen couldn't believe it. He cultivated the dark, ghost-devouring soul technique. Although it was incomplete, even the lightning ancestor tree said that it was a top soul refining technique. As for Zi Chen, he had gradually come to understand that drawing talismans was closely related to one soul. But why was it like this? Why? It seems that you can't believe it? Lei Zhenghongye said disdainfully. How long have you been in contact with the holy talisman Tao? I've been studying it for decades. How can you compare? Zichen looked at Fu Lao, waiting for his evaluation. Clearly, he didn't believe that he had lost. Kid, there's nothing shameful about losing. What's shameful is that you don't have the courage to admit defeat. Master Meng looked at Zichen and said disappointedly, I thought that you were a promising talent. I didn't expect you to be a coward who doesn't even dare to admit defeat. Grace stood at the side, not knowing what to say. She could only look at Grandpa Fu, hoping that he would say a few words. Fu Lao said with a smile, Master Meng is right. In terms of spiritual power, Lei Zhenghongye's 3 talismans are indeed stronger than Zichen's. Even if it's just a little, it's still stronger. Zichen's face instantly paled, and his mood fell to the bottom. Grace was the same. She was very unwilling to accept that Zichen was only a little bit weaker than Lei Zhenghongye. At the same time, she felt some regret and self-blame. If she hadn't dragged Zichen here today and let Zichen cultivate for a few more days, she believed that he would be better than Lei Zhenghongye. This was because Lei Zhenghongye had been studying the holy talisman Tao for decades, but Zichen had only used 10 days. Lei Zhenghongye was very proud and stared at Zichen with a provocative gaze. Meng Shi said, Since that's the case, let's quickly announce the victor. Fu Lao continued, From the looks of the Holy Thunder Talisman, Lei Zhenghongye has a slight advantage, but if we were to talk about the real winner, I think Zichen will win this time. What? Lei Zhenghongye's expression froze. His eyes widened as he looked at Fu Lao in disbelief. Palace Master, did you make a mistake? Meng Shi also looked at Fu Lao in astonishment. Fang Cheng and Grace were also stunned. Since it was so obvious, why did Zichen win? Zichen was also a little dumbfounded. Although he really wanted to win, he didn't seem to have the advantage, right? Palace Master, isn't it a little too obvious that you're protecting him? Master Meng said indifferently, Aren't you worried that the Talisman Hall will become a laughingstock in the future? Fu Lao smiled as he looked at Zichen and said, Zichen, take out your talisman drawing brush. Zichen didn't understand, but he still took out his holy talisman brush as instructed. The holy talisman brush emitted a faint glow as it was held in Zichen's hand. Fu Lao said, Old Meng, now you should know why Zichen won, right? As a 5-star holy talisman master, Master Meng was extremely talented in the holy talisman Tao. Back then, he was also one of the stewards here. But the Lei Zheng family invited him back at a high price to be a guest elder. Therefore, after Fu Lao pointed out the problem, he immediately saw the problem. It's actually an entry-level holy talisman brush. How is this possible? Master Meng was completely dumbfounded when he saw the entry-level holy talisman brush that belonged to the Lei Zheng family in Zichen's hand. It was used by newcomers in the early stages and would be eliminated in the later stages. In addition, due to the huge soul suppression in the examination ground, it was impossible for an ordinary 1-star holy talisman master to use the entry-level holy talisman brush to draw a talisman. Therefore, all the holy talisman masters who came here to participate in the examination would use a 1st-grade holy talisman brush. Who would have thought that Zichen would use an entry-level one? If the entry-level talisman was second only to Lei Zhenghongye, then in terms of true attainment as a holy talisman master, Zichen would naturally win. It's fake, it must be fake. Before Master Meng could say anything, Lei Zhenghongye said loudly, He must have used this to confuse everyone. In fact, he used a 1st-grade holy talisman brush. Master Meng looked at Fu Lao. Fu Lao said, This little guy doesn't have a 1st-grade holy talisman brush. This is completely out of my expectations. However, if you don't agree, then I will provide him with a 1st-grade holy talisman brush. The 2 of you can compete again. Let's compete. Do you think I'm afraid of him? He lost to me before, so he won't win this time either. Lei Zhenghongye said angrily. He couldn't be blamed for being so angry. The low-grade, soul-amassing crystal was too precious. He took it out because he thought that he would definitely win. Lei Zhenghongye lost his rationality at the thought of losing the soul-amassing crystal. He pointed at Fu Lao and said, "And you, what makes you think that I've lost? His holy lightning talisman is inferior to mine, so I've won. Are you old and blind?" Fu Lao, who had been smiling, suddenly looked at Lei Zhenghongye with a sharp gaze. At the side, Zichen said indifferently, "Are you a sore loser? If you're not convinced, let's continue." Fu Lao waved his hand and said, "There's no need for that. The outcome has already been decided. It's not shameful to lose. What's shameful is that you don't have the courage to admit defeat." This was what Master Meng said to Zichen before, and now Fu Lao said it. He looked at Master Meng and said, "Do you really think that I'm old and blind?" Master Meng's expression changed. Clearly, the Hall Master noticed the protection mark from before. Lei Zhenghongye also came to a realization. If what Master Meng said was true, he wouldn't be able to win against Zichen if they were to compete again. In fact, he would lose even more miserably. Because he couldn't succeed 3 times in a row, the gap between them would be even bigger. Fu Lao looked at Master Meng. Master Meng's expression was very ugly. He turned around and looked at Lei Zhenghongye. Lei Zhenghongye was unwilling, but he didn't dare to say anything and walked forward. At the same time, a light shone in his hand, and a palm-sized crystal appeared. The crystal was dazzling like a treasure. After the appearance of the crystal, the soul power in the hall became extremely active. Zichen's eyes lit up the moment he saw the crystal. This was what he needed. He was about to take the crystal, but he found that Lei Zhenghongye was holding it tightly. "What? Can't afford to lose?" Zichen smiled faintly. "Brat, just you wait." Lei Zhenghongye snorted. His eyes were full of killing intent, and he released his grip. Zichen took the soul-gathering crystal. It was indeed a treasure in the eyes of a saint talisman master. When he held the crystal, the soul power in the world gathered toward him. Chapter 3468. It was relatively difficult to refine the soul-gathering crystal. Otherwise, it wouldn't have become a saint talisman master's treasure. Lei Zhenghongye's expression turned ugly as he watched Zichen refine the soul-gathering crystal. Feeling uncomfortable, he couldn't help but mock Zichen. What an ignorant idiot! If the soul-gathering crystal was so easy to refine, how could it still be called a treasure? Zichen didn't move and closed his eyes. After the soul-gathering crystal entered his mind, it seemed to be attracted and immediately flew to the black soul. At the same time, a soul power flew out of the black soul and wrapped around the soul-gathering crystal. As if recognizing its owner, the soul quickly refined the soul-gathering crystal. Ignorant idiot. Even if a good thing is placed in front of you, it will only be a waste. Lei Zhenghongye was sad and angry. When others tried to refine the soul-gathering crystal, which one of them didn't prepare carefully and used some supplementary soul materials and seclusion for a few months, or even years, how could someone do it so abruptly? Since the thing is already Zichen's, he can refine it however he wants. Grace couldn't stand Lei Zhenghongye's sarcasm and said, however, in her heart, she also felt pity for Zichen. Zichen's way of doing things was truly too reckless. Fang Cheng, who was standing at the side, saw this scene. For Zichen, Grace dared to go against the Lei Zheng family, which made him angry. Grace, what you said is wrong. What Hongye said is true. It's a waste for Zichen to refine the soul-gathering crystal. Fang Cheng said, You? Grace stared at Fang Cheng. Fang Cheng said again, I didn't mean to deliberately target anyone. I just said that Zichen's behavior is really wasteful. Or rather, he doesn't know what's good for him and doesn't know what's good for him. Well said. Lei Zhenghongye laughed and said, This idiot dares to refine the soul-gathering crystal with his weak soul. He really doesn't know what's good for him. If he suffers a backlash and his soul is damaged, there will be a good show to watch. Since you like to watch a show so much, why don't we have another bet? At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. It was Zichen. He had already opened his eyes. You, Lei Hongya, stared at Zichen and sensed that his soul was obviously stronger. He said in shock, "You didn't suffer from the backlash. You refined the soul-gathering crystal?" Standing by the side, a hint of astonishment flashed across Meng Shi's eyes. Fu Lao, who had been paying attention to Zichen, nodded his head slightly. A smile appeared on his face. This smile contained the kindness and appreciation of an elder looking at a younger generation. To be able to draw the Holy Thunder Talisman with the entry-level Holy Talisman brush, the strength of one's soul was truly extraordinary. Zichen ignored Lei Hongya. Instead, he turned to Fu Lao and said, "Fu Lao, since I've become a Saint Talisman Master, can I buy some talisman paper?" Hearing this, Fu Lao laughed heartily and said, "There's no need to buy. Everyone has a certain amount. Moreover, there's an additional reward for becoming a 1-star Saint Talisman Master." Zichen's eyes lit up. The word reward was especially attractive to him. "Let's go." Meng Shi snorted and waved his sleeves, preparing to leave. Fu Lao turned back and said, "Old Meng, there's also a reward for the little fellow you brought." "There's no need for that. Our Leijing clan is not interested in those things." Meng Shi didn't stop and turned to leave. However, when he walked out of the hall, he glanced coldly at Zichen. Lei Hongya was even more direct. After losing the soul-gathering crystal, his eyes were filled with resentment. "Since that's the case, I'll get someone to send you the certificate later." Fu Lao's laughter was still echoing. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. After the two left, Fu Lao looked at Zichen and said with a smile, "Little fellow, well done." Ever since old Meng joined the Leizheng family, he often came to me to boast about how many Saint Talisman Masters he had nurtured. I didn't expect that he would lose the soul-gathering crystal here today. Looking at his ugly expression just now, just thinking about it makes me happy. Zichen scratched his head and said, "I still have to thank Fu Lao. Otherwise, I would have lost." "Lost? How is that possible?" Fu Lao said, "With your soul attainments, you're far superior to Lei Hongya under the same conditions. Moreover, the Saint Talisman Master examination has always been fair. Speaking of which, I just wanted to see what you're capable of." Everything here was within Fu Lao's perception. Zichen could successfully write 3 Saint Thunder Talismans with the entry-level Saint Talisman brush. Compared to Lei Hongya, who had evil intentions, he was much stronger. Seeing Fu Lao so excited that he didn't mention the reward at all, Zichen could only ask, "Excuse me, Fu Lao, may I know what the reward will be after I become a 1-star Saint Talisman Master?" "The reward is very generous," Fu Lao said with a smile. "A Saint Talisman brush, 10 pieces of Saint Talisman paper, and a box of blood swallow. Although they're only first grade, they're definitely the best of the best." Zichen was very satisfied and quickly thanked him. Then he asked, "Can I sell the Saint Talisman paper extra?" After all, 10 pieces were far from enough. Fu Lao said, "Of course, but there's another way to get the Saint Talisman paper. Do you want to hear it?" Zichen nodded. "The Talisman Hall will provide you with 100 pieces of Saint Talisman paper for free, and you have to hand over 21-star complete Saint Talismans to the Talisman Hall within a year." Hearing Fu Lao's words, Zichen's eyes lit up. "There's such a good deal." Fu Lao shook his head and said, "It's a good thing." "No, this is just a way for the Talisman Hall to encourage the growth of newcomers. An ordinary 1-star Saint Talisman Master would barely have such a high success rate. Moreover, the Talisman Hall only provides the talisman paper. The Saint ink and Saint brush are all yours." But even so, it was extremely worth it for Zichen. He said, "In that case, as long as I give you 21-star Saint Talismans, you can do whatever you want with the other 80. That's right. Fu Lao nodded. Zichen thought for a while and said again, "Is this condition always in place or is there a time limit? For example, as long as I have 20 Saint Talismans, I can come here to exchange for them? Or can I only exchange for them once a year or 10 years? As long as you have 20 Saint Talismans, you can come here to exchange for them at any time." Fu Lao said, "The more the better." Just as the two were talking, a young disciple walked in from outside the hall. He came with Zichen's reward. In addition to the original reward, there was also a special long robe that emitted a golden light. Fu Lao explained, "This is the Saint Talisman Master's robe. It has an extremely strong defensive effect. It's not easy for a 1-star Saint Spirit to break it." Fu Lao, who spoke, did not look proud. Instead, he looked a little embarrassed. This was because Zichen was already a 4-star Saint Spirit. Such a robe was almost useless to him. In fact, this was also the reason why Saint Talisman Masters were embarrassed. Although they were known as the absolute experts of the same level, in the Saint Spirit sector, 1-star Saint Talisman Masters were basically 4-star Saint Spirits. This also caused the number of Saint Talisman Masters to decrease. Chapter 3469. Old Fu was naturally willing to help. He quickly sent over 100 first-grade Saint Talisman parchments. Then, Zichen and Grace bid farewell and left. He originally wanted to buy Saint Talismans, but he didn't expect to receive so many benefits. "By the way, you said you had something important to tell me. What is it?" Grace asked after leaving the Talisman Hall. She didn't forget that Zichen said he had something important to tell her. Zichen smiled and said, "The important thing is to treat you to a meal." "Me?" Grace was stunned and seemed very surprised. In fact, this was something that Zichen had thought of because he always troubled Grace whenever he had something. It seemed that when he looked for her, there would always be something. Zichen nodded seriously and asked, "Why? Don't you have time?" "Yes, of course I do." But as soon as she finished speaking, Grace's face turned slightly red, as if she had agreed too casually. "Brother Zichen, congratulations, congratulations." Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Zichen turned around and saw an unfamiliar middle-aged man standing behind him with a smile. "You are." Zichen looked at him and was sure that he didn't know him. He hadn't even seen him before. The man said, "I'm the deacon of the Talisman Hall, Wan He." "Oh, so you're from the Talisman Hall. May I know why you're looking for me?" Zichen cupped his fists and asked, "To tell you the truth, I'm here to discuss business with Zichen." Wan He glanced at Grace and said, "Do you have time, brother Zichen?" Zichen shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, we're going to eat." Wan He smiled and said, "That's not a problem. In fact, I want to buy your Saint Talismans. If you give them to the Talisman Hall, 20 first-grade Saint Talismans can only be exchanged for 100 Saint Talisman papers. But with me, you can exchange for 200. "Oh, there's such a thing?" Zichen was a little surprised. One had to know that there was a difference of 2 times. Looking at Zichen's tempted expression, when he continued, "If the grade is very high, the price can actually be negotiated. Oh, I won't disturb Brother Zichen any further. If you're interested, you can look for me at the Talisman Hall." After saying that, when he clasped his fist again and left. Zichen was indeed tempted. After all, 20 first-grade Saint Talismans could only be exchanged for 100 Saint Talisman papers in the Talisman Hall. "Let's go." But he quickly shook his head. No matter what, he had to return the 20 talismans he owed the Talisman Hall. In a restaurant, Zichen and Grace sat opposite each other. Grace looked at Zichen. "Are you going to make a deal with Wan He?" "Not for the time being. At the very least, I have to return the 20 pieces from the Talisman Hall," said Zichen with a smile. Grace nodded. Looking at Grace's hesitant expression, Zichen asked, "What's wrong?" Grace pondered for a moment before saying, "The value of saint talismans has always been very high. The same goes for the corresponding saint talisman papers. You can only exchange 20 pieces for 100 pieces in the talisman hall, but you can get at least 200 pieces from Wan He. This seems to be a good deal, but what?" asked Zichen. "Once, Grandpa Talisman drank a little too much with my great-grandfather at my house. He said something that I overheard. He said that the Talisman Hall's reward wasn't high, but that's because the Talisman Hall focuses on nurturing Saint Talisman Masters. The true value is in contribution points." Zichen knew about contribution points. There was one piece in his reward this time. It was said that every time he exchanged for a Saint Talisman paper, he would receive a contribution point. And those contribution points could be exchanged for other things in the Talisman Hall, such as various Saint Talisman arts, saint brushes, and saint ink. Grace said that was what Grandpa Talisman said when he was drunk. I accidentally overheard it, but according to the comparison of other Saint Talisman Masters, even if the contribution points given by the Talisman Hall are included, the final value is far less than what one he offered. Therefore, many Saint Talisman Masters don't trade with the Talisman Hall. Zichen asked, "Then what did Fu Lao say? Didn't he raise the price?" Grace shook her head. "He didn't ask, nor did he raise the price. It's as if he pretended not to know." Zichen asked again, "Then do you think Fu Lao is bent on strengthening the Talisman Hall?" "Of course," Grace said without hesitation. "If Fu Lao didn't want to strengthen the Talisman Hall, he would have left long ago. That Master Meng was originally from the Talisman Hall, but he was poached by the Leizheng family. It's said that the Leizheng family offered Grandpa Talisman a lot more than Master Meng." "All right, I understand. Let's eat." Zichen smiled. Originally, he was still a little hesitant, but after hearing Grace's words, he made up his mind. A hall master who wholeheartedly wanted to develop the Talisman Hall, but didn't raise the reward and allowed the Saint Talisman Masters to trade elsewhere was problematic. Others might not believe that there wasn't a deeper meaning, but at the very least, Zichen didn't believe it. "By the way, can I trouble you with one more thing?" Zichen asked. "What is it?" Grace asked. "Can I trouble you to help me exchange for the first grade Saint Talisman in the future?" Zichen said, "I will be staying in the Tianwu world and won't deliberately stay here. Oh, if you want to cultivate, I can give you the right to use the Thunder Hall's room." Grace seemed to have thought of something, and her face turned slightly red. She said, "No need. I have a place to stay here. As for exchanging for Saint Talisman, there's no problem." "Thank you very much." After the two ate, Zichen left the core city and returned to the Tianwu world. In the room, Zichen took out the Saint Talisman brush and studied it carefully. Compared to the Saint Talisman brush that he had started with, this Saint Talisman brush, called the Righteous Plum, contained much more power. The two were not on the same level at all. Putting the Righteous Plum aside, Zichen took out the talisman paper, which was naturally of high quality. Then he took out the saint ink. The saint ink was called a blood swallow. As Zichen opened it, a blood-red light overflowed from it. A clear sound rang out, and a palm-sized blood swallow flew out of the saint ink and danced around the ink box. Such a miraculous scene made Zichen open his eyes wide. He was very curious. Good brush, good paper, and good ink. With the combination of these three, Zichen believed that his talisman drawing skills would definitely improve. Putting down the talisman paper, he picked up the brush and the ink, and a Holy Thunder talisman appeared. Successful on the first try, a pattern appeared on the Holy Thunder talisman, and a powerful wave was released. Feeling the wave, Zichen nodded with satisfaction. This Holy Thunder talisman was much more powerful than Leizheng Hongya's. Chapter 3470. The soul-gathering crystal had already fused with Zichen's soul. In other words, it was being surrounded by the black soul. Even if Zichen didn't cultivate, the soul power between heaven and earth was constantly being absorbed by the soul-gathering crystal. However, these souls didn't directly become Zichen's soul. Instead, they entered the black vortex. After being refined by the ghost-devouring soul technique, they fused with Zichen's soul. During this time, more than 99% of the power disappeared in the vortex. Therefore, although it seemed like Zichen was constantly cultivating, the growth of his soul was very slow. However, Zichen was very satisfied with this, because if he didn't have this soul-gathering crystal, he would have to constantly cultivate if he wanted to improve his soul. However, now his soul could grow on its own. Withdrawing his consciousness from the sea of consciousness, Zichen took out the defensive talisman technique and looked at it. The offensive talisman technique was called the Holy Thunder Talisman, while the defensive talisman technique was called the Holy Defense Talisman. During the process of his soul recovering, Zichen carefully studied the Holy Defense Talisman. After his soul recovered, he patiently tried to draw it. Even though he was prepared, Zichen still failed 5 times before he drew a complete Holy Defense Talisman, which barely reached the 1st grade. With the experience of success, everything else went much smoother. It took Zichen nearly 4 days to draw a total of 110 talismans. There were a total of 104 talismans, 50 of which were the Holy Thunder Talisman, and the remaining 54 were the 1st grade Holy Defense Talisman. After walking out of the room, Zichen called a person. This person was from the Jello family and had a connection with Grace. Zichen handed all 101st grade holy talismans to the person and asked him to pass them to Grace. Half a day later, a spirit ring with 101st grade holy talismans was placed in front of Grace. At the same time, there was a 1st grade holy talisman token that belonged to Zichen. Looking at the talismans, Grace's beautiful face revealed a trace of shock. It had only been 4 days since the last time she met Zichen, but Zichen had actually completed 100 holy talismans. Wasn't this speed too fast? Moreover, she could sense that these saint talismans were all peak 1st grade saint talismans, only 2nd to 2nd grade saint talismans. The person had left after delivering the items. She didn't have the time to ask, so she could only put down her work and go to the talisman hall to look for Grandpa Fu. Fu Lao sat listlessly in the talisman hall. After learning that when he had gone to look for Zichen, he had given up hope. He knew very well that the talisman hall did not have an advantage in this aspect. He also wanted to improve the treatment. However, this was the rule set by the hall master. Back then, the hall master had given him all the authority. He had only warned him that this rule could not be changed. A good seedling. Fu Lao recalled Zichen, and his eyes were filled with regret. Grandpa Fu. At this moment, Grace's voice sounded. "Why are you here, girl?" Fu Lao put away his regret and stood up to ask. "I'm here to exchange contribution points for Zichen," Grace said. "Oh, it's the 21st grade Saint Talismans from last time. Just give it to someone else." Fu Lao's eyes were filled with regret. To be able to complete 20 Saint Talismans in just 4 days was enough to see Zichen's potential. It was a pity that the Talisman Hall couldn't keep such a genius. It seemed that Zichen was not bad. In the past, many people only sent 100 blank talismans and said that they couldn't complete the mission. Grace didn't know what Fu Lao was thinking. She stepped forward and said, "Grandpa Fu, this time you have to give Zichen more contribution points because these are all good things." After she finished speaking, rays of light flashed in front of her and talismans flew out in front of her. 100 talismans surged with powerful auras as they floated in front of her. This is... Fu Lao's regretful expression froze when he saw these talismans. His eyes were filled with astonishment. Zichen asked me to bring these over. In addition to the 20 talismans he promised, You have to give me an additional 400. Grace smiled and said, This is Zi Chen's contribution token. I've seen it. These talismans are of high quality among first-grade talismans. So Grandpa Fu can't deduct Zi Chen's contribution points. Girl, you mean to say that these first-grade saint talismans were completed by Zi Chen in the past few days? Even someone as knowledgeable as Elder Fu couldn't help but be astonished when he saw these saint talismans. Grace said, I don't know about this, but I think it should be. Let me take a look. Fu Lao walked forward. Although the saint talismans were all the same, everyone had their own habits. Moreover, one could sense the differences through the aura fluctuations. After careful observation, Fu Lao's expression changed constantly. It went from surprise to shock and finally to ecstasy. It's a person, yes. It's Zi Chen who drew it, and most of it was done in one go. Amazing! Amazing! Fu Lao praised repeatedly. His tone was full of praise for Zi Chen. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble Grandpa Fu to give me some more contribution points. Grace grinned and said, Also, you have to prepare the Saint Talisman paper. Don't worry. Don't worry. Fu Lao nodded repeatedly, but soon asked, Girl, are you sure that Zi Chen asked you to give this to the Talisman Hall? And not someone else? Of course I'm sure. Grace said, I didn't know that Zi Chen had other plans. All right, Grandpa Fu, hurry up and give it to me. I still have to go back. Wait a moment. Fu Lao went to deal with this matter personally. He quickly brought back the talisman paper and added the contribution points to Zi Chen's Saint Talisman token. The quality of the Saint Talisman is indeed good. I gave him 120 contribution points. As for the Saint Talisman paper, here are 480 pieces. Looking at the Saint Talisman paper, Grace tilted her head and looked at Fu Lao. Grandpa Fu, this doesn't seem to be your character, right? Haven't the rules of the Talisman Hall never changed? Fu Lao snorted and said, The rules of the Talisman Hall naturally won't change. These are extra points from this old man. Next, I'll have to trouble you to personally go and tell Zi Chen. Grace nodded and said, Don't worry, I'll go when I have time. Go now. Fu Lao said, If something else happens, I'll take care of it for you. All right then. Grace stuck out her tongue and turned to leave. Seeing Grace appear in front of him, Zi Chen was very surprised. Why are you here? Why? It seems like you don't welcome me. Grace sat opposite Zi Chen at the tree table. No, you came at the right time. I have some good tea here. I'll treat you to it. Chapter 3471. Looking at Zi Chen's clumsy actions, Grace said, Let me do it. Your good tea can't be wasted like this. She already knew about Zi Chen's relationship with the Leizheng family. She even knew why the Leizheng family hadn't taken revenge on Zi Chen yet. The Tianseng tea was famous for its good tea. Even for her, it was a luxury. Under her skillful hands, the fragrance of the tea soon filled the entire room. Good tea. My spiritual power has increased a little. Zi Chen drank the tea in one gulp and felt the spiritual power in his body. He was enjoying it. Grace slowly tasted the tea. She didn't care about the increase in spiritual power. Only people like her could appreciate the preciousness of the Tianseng tea. For Zi Chen, it was like a cow chewing on a peony. He could only distinguish the good from the bad with his spiritual power. Instead of this, he might as well eat a spirit crystal directly. Grandpa Fu asked me to come here. When I gave you the holy talisman, I also gave you 80 more talismans. Grace took the initiative to start conversation. Zi Chen was a little surprised. Didn't you say that the rules haven't changed? The rules haven't changed. Grandpa Fu said that he specially gave it to you. Zi Chen nodded. Actually, I know. Grandpa Fu asked me to come here mainly to see your attitude, or to ask why you did this. Grace looked into Zi Chen's eyes and said, I only brought 480 talismans this time, but if you go to Wan He to exchange them, you can exchange at least 1,000 talismans. Why? Zichen said, just think of it as my contribution to the Holy Thunder Clan. As a member of the Holy Thunder Clan, how can I only want rewards and not contribute? Really? It's up to you to believe it or not. Okay, give it to me quickly. My proficiency still needs to be improved. Zichen urged. Recently, he really liked the Holy Talisman Master profession. It was really good to stay in the room every day and write and draw. The most important thing was that once this profession matured, everyone would be rich and powerful. It was just like the talismans that he had written. For many spirit ascension tier cultivators, every single one of them could be used as a foundation. For those one-star saint spirits, it was also a life-saving measure. If it was placed in the Holy Thunder region, as long as the price was reasonable, it would definitely be in short supply. Zichen took the talisman and said, then I won't see you off. Obviously, he was already prepared to draw talismans. Can I see it? Grace asked. Up to you. Zichen did not care about this. It was not a secret at all. Zichen picked up the brush and drew the talisman. Just as Fu Lao had said, it was done in one go. On the side, Grace was dumbfounded. In the blink of an eye, Zichen had already completed 5 holy lightning talismans. He rubbed the space between his eyebrows and said, I'm a little weak. Grace looked at Zichen as if she was looking at a monster. It was not that she had never seen people draw talismans. Even their Grace family had trained some holy talisman masters, but those holy talisman masters were very careful when drawing talismans. How could they be as casual as Zichen? Moreover, after drawing a talisman, they would take a break and drink tea to regain their senses. Zichen, on the other hand, had drawn 5 talismans in one go and was still not satisfied. Zichen did not rest. After stretching his muscles and bones, he drew 10 talismans in one go this time, which shocked Grace again. You draw talismans so fast? Grace asked. Zichen put down the brush and said, not too fast. If I am in good condition, I can complete 30 talismans a day. Grace almost spat out the tea in her mouth. 30 talismans a day is not too fast? Zichen shook his head and said, actually, I think I should be faster, but for some reason, 30 talismans a day seems to be the limit. This is already very good. Oh no, it is too good. Grace sincerely praised. This kind of speed is the first I've seen in my life. Then Grace hesitated again. Your speed is so fast. If you give it to Wan He, the return will naturally be greater. But if you give it to the Talisman Hall, the loss will not be small. Zichen glanced at the dim luster of the blood-swallow sacred ink and said, actually, I plan to take out a portion of it and give it to Wan He to exchange for holy talisman paper and sacred ink. Grace nodded and said, this is actually quite good. After all, you have a world behind you. Moreover, your talisman drawing speed is fast enough. It will not affect your accumulation of contributions in the Talisman Hall. Next, Grace volunteered to discuss with Wan He on behalf of Zichen. Therefore, when she left, she took 20 holy talismans with her. Looking at the leaving Grace, Zichen felt grateful. She had really helped him a lot. Without considering the benefits between their families, the two of them were already friends. The process of Grace finding Wan He was very smooth. The other party was a deacon of the Talisman Hall, so he naturally knew what had happened there. She had already known that Zichen had contributed 101-star sacred talismans, so it was easy for her to find him. What followed was a conversation. After looking at the holy talismans, when he was very satisfied, after giving Grace 200 holy talisman papers, he gave her an additional box of sacred ink. At the same time, the two of them discussed future cooperation. For example, Zichen would provide Wan He with 20 high-quality holy talismans every month. This was naturally very efficient. Wan He agreed and said that the price would be better when the time came. Of course, when he asked for more holy talismans, Grace did not agree on the spot. She said that she would ask Zichen first. 30 pieces a day. The talisman papers that Zichen took from the talisman hall were all turned into holy talismans after 18 days. Zichen gave Grace 280 saint talismans to exchange for contribution points at the talisman hall. The remaining 200 saint talismans were sold to Wan He. Following that, Zichen received 2,500 one-star holy talisman papers and 15 boxes of sacred ink. Zichen's transaction speed made Wan He very excited. He wanted to personally pay a visit several times, but he was stopped by Grace. Zichen was focused on drawing talismans, so he did not pay attention to the outside world. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months passed. Zichen found that his speed did not increase. It was as if he had reached a bottleneck. Just as he decided to find a few more holy talismans, he received news from the talisman hall. The talisman forest had been opened, and Zichen was specially invited to go. Talisman forest? What's that place? Zichen asked, puzzled. It should be considered a sacred cultivation ground for holy talisman masters. Over there, one's spiritual power will increase very quickly. Furthermore, one can obtain holy talisman arts. Grace explained the various benefits of the talisman forest to Zichen. Zichen was very interested. It's a very special place. In short, you'll understand when you get there. Chapter 3472. Before Zichen left, he told Jolina where he was going. The Tianwu world was not completely open to the outside world yet. Everything was in preparation, and Zichen's help was not needed for the time being. Before he left some holy talismans for Jolina to protect herself. Zichen followed Grace to the core city and entered the talisman hall. When Zichen arrived, he saw that there were already many people in the talisman hall. With Zichen's arrival, all eyes were on him. Come over quickly. The talisman forest is about to open. Fu Lao waved at Zichen, and Zichen walked towards Fu Lao. Looking at Zichen, Fu Lao said, "You should have some understanding of the talisman forest, right?" Zichen nodded. On the way here, Grace had explained everything about the talisman forest to him in detail, which was an eye-opener for Zichen. That's good. Be careful when you go in. All powers are confined there, and you only have one life. You must be careful. Hearing Fu Lao's words, Zichen nodded again. Ren Zheng, Qian Li, after you two go in, if you meet Zichen, take care of him, Fu Lao said to the two of them. The middle-aged man named Ren Zheng nodded. Qian Li said, "If we meet him, we will naturally help. However, the possibility is not high because our ultimate goal is to condense the soul-gathering crystal. When the time comes, we will definitely be in the most dangerous place. Zichen is only a 1-star. At most, he is going to see the world. The possibility of not meeting him is too high." Qian Li smiled faintly and said to the others, "As for you guys, if you meet him, remember to take care of him, okay?" Many people chuckled when they heard this, but their laughter was full of contempt. Zichen was expressionless. When this guy named Qian Li first looked at him, there was a hint of hostility in his eyes. On the other hand, Fu Lao's expression gradually turned ugly. Seeming to have sensed the change in Fu Lao's expression, Qian Li cupped his fists and said, "Fu Lao, the path of our divine talisman master is fraught with difficulties. If we need the support and help of others, we are destined to have no achievements in the future." That's right, Fu Lao. Not only is this unfair to others, it's also unfair to Zichen. After all, Fu Lao also wants him to go further. Another saint talisman master at the back said, "Besides, we're all going for the soul-gathering crystal. I'm afraid we won't have time to take care of the newcomers." Fu Lao's expression became increasingly ugly. These fellows actually came to reason with him. Little did they know that when they first entered the talisman forest, they were also taken care of by their seniors. Zi-Chun was not angry. He just silently memorized these people's faces. According to his experience, there should be a lot of trouble in the Talisman Forest this time. Thank you for your concern, Fu Lao. I'm just going to take a look and don't have any big plans. Fu Lao, you don't have to worry. I believe that I can still protect myself in the Talisman Forest. Taking in everyone's expressions, Zi-Chun turned around and cupped his fists towards Fu Lao. A mere one-star cultivator talking about self-protection? How laughable. Qianli mocked. What you need to do in the Talisman Forest is not self-protection, but how to barely survive and avoid being eliminated early. Although you can't fight privately there are countless divine talisman beasts. Furthermore, the battle between divine talisman masters is earth-shattering and covers a large area. It's inevitable that you will be affected. In history, there have been countless people who were eliminated because of the energy shockwaves. Regarding this problem, Grace had already told Zi-Chun. The so-called shockwaves were just a good excuse. In fact, it was a failure in the battle. There were no rules to speak of in the Talisman Forest. On the contrary, every time one person was eliminated, their chances would be greater. I have already remembered Senior Brother's words. Senior Brother, you should also be careful. I heard that there are many 3-star divine talisman masters who were eliminated by the shockwaves. Zi-Chun smiled slightly. He already had soul-gathering crystals on him. In the Talisman Forest, soul-gathering crystals were extremely useful for divine talisman masters. Qianli said, You don't have to worry about whether I'll be in danger or not. However, you're wrong about one thing. You're just a 1-star cultivator. You're not qualified to call me Senior Brother. Qianli looked at Zi-Chun and emphasized, Because you're not qualified. All right, stop talking. Now that the Talisman Forest is open, everyone should be thinking about how to get the last soul-gathering crystal. This time, we can't let the other clans get it. Ren Zheng said from the side. His words seemed to be very dignified, and the others all fell silent. Fu Lao gently patted Zi-Chun's head. At the same time, a voice sounded in his mind, You have to be careful. With Fu Lao's eyesight, he could naturally see that someone was targeting Zi-Chun. Zi-Chun did not respond and pretended as if nothing had happened. Fu Lao walked to the center of the talisman hall and waved his hand. Hundreds of divine talisman papers appeared and then arranged themselves according to a certain rule. They revolved in the air. Many Saint Talisman masters revealed looks of envy upon seeing this scene. When many divine talismans gathered together, it was called the Divine Talisman Array. Not only could it unleash the power of all the divine talismans, but it would also be stronger. The Divine Talisman Array was divided into 3 grades: Earth, Heaven, and Divine. Among them, it was further divided into 3 grades: Upper, Middle, and Lower. Looking at the scale, the Divine Talisman Array was at least Middle Heaven grade. All the divine talismans were connected according to a certain rule, releasing powerful waves. The space below the Divine Talisman Array twisted and was forcibly torn apart. A passage appeared. Let's go. After seeing the passage appear, Rin Zheng was the first to walk in. The other divine talisman masters stepped in one after another. Go, be careful. Grace was not a divine talisman master and naturally did not have the qualifications to enter. She waved her hand at Zi-Chun. Before Zi-Chun went in, he took out a small box and said, This is a gift for you. Open it when you go back. With that, Zi-Chun walked in. Under the Divine Talisman Array, Fu Lao also walked in. As Fu Lao walked in, the light of the Divine Talisman Array dimmed but did not disappear. Many divine talismans were still revolving in the air. All right, little girl, you should go out. This place will be a forbidden area for a period of time. A black-robed old man who appeared out of nowhere stood behind Grace. Grace, who was holding the jade box in a daze, realized that only she and the old man were left in the talisman hall. She nodded and quickly left with the jade box. At the same time, she was very curious. What gift did Zichen give her? The old man left and was then sealed by the talisman hall. If one observed carefully, they would discover that there were many powerful auras hidden around the talisman hall. Grace returned to her residence, closed the door, and impatiently opened the jade box. Chapter 3473. Entering the space created by the sacred symbol array, Zichen saw another space. This was not the talisman forest. In this space, there were many jade platforms. The jade platforms were positioned in front and behind, high and low. Zichen, who was walking at the back, saw Renjiang and Qian Li walking at the front. However, their speed was relatively slow. Zichen was puzzled. Immediately after, the others walked into the range of the jade platforms, and their speed slowed down significantly. Go and try. Fu Lao looked at the puzzled Zichen and smiled. Zichen nodded and walked forward. After taking a few steps, he felt a strong pressure on his body. This pressure was like some kind of seal, and it instantly imprisoned his physical strength and abdomen's power. Zichen's speed was the same as the others, and he slowed down. Now that there was an invisible imprisonment, he could only use his soul power to resist the pressure and move forward slowly. At this moment, under the pressure, Zichen felt that the jade platforms in front of him were actually divided into 3 stages. There were a total of 150 jade platforms, and each stage was divided into 50. At this moment, Renjiang and Qian Li had already passed the first stage and reached the second stage. The others were still in the first stage, and their speed varied. After adapting to the pressure for a short while, Zichen felt much better, and his speed gradually increased. However, the pressure also increased as Zichen moved forward. He was the last one. Some people had already reached the second stage, but more people were moving forward in the first stage, and their speed was getting slower and slower. After a while, someone stopped in the first stage, stepped onto a jade platform nearby, and sat cross-legged on it. More people stopped one after another. At this moment, Renjiang and Qian Li had also stopped in the third stage, and they sat cross-legged on the jade platforms in the middle. In the blink of an eye, other than Zichen, the others had all found their respective jade platforms. Zichen was the only one who was still moving forward. It's just a small test. If you can't take it, quickly find a place to stop so as not to waste everyone's time. Qian Li, who was standing in the third stage, said indifferently. Zichen ignored him and continued walking forward. He now had a basic understanding of this place. The 3 stages should correspond to the realms of the 3 Saint Talisman Masters. 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars. Zichen wasn't sure if this test would affect the overall situation, but since there was a test, he had to do his best to complete it. He still didn't give up and walked forward step by step. What an idiot. The ridicule in Qian Li's eyes grew even stronger. The others were the same, because this kind of pressure test had no effect on their journey to the Fu Forest. This was the result of many years of experience. If there really was an impact, everyone would do their best to fight for a position at the back. Only Fu Lao patiently watched the scene with anticipation in his eyes. That was because he knew very well the significance of this test. The placement of the jade platform represented one's potential. Even if some people deliberately stepped forward, they would not be able to do so due to their own potential. Under the mocking expressions of the crowd, Zichen walked forward step by step, overtaking the 1-star Saint Talisman Masters one after another. Even though this test was useless to them, their expressions were still very ugly after being overtaken by Zichen. It's not a competition. How can it take so long? Do you really think that we can't reach that place? Everyone has the energy to spare, but they don't want to walk. Isn't that right? If you continue to walk foolishly, you'll only delay everyone's time. Those who were overtaken by Zichen all mocked and spoke harshly. Zichen was indifferent and continued walking forward. He walked to the 48th jade platform. At this time, the soul pressure was extremely terrifying. Looking at the 2 jade platforms in front of him, Zichen didn't stop but continued walking forward. The 49th level. At this moment, the pressure was countless times stronger. Sweat dripped down his cheeks. Zichen felt that the difference between the 49th and 50th levels was like heaven and earth. He gritted his teeth and mobilized all of his soul power to go forward again. In an instant, his body lit up with a black light. That was the black soul power. In the end, Zichen stood at the end of the first stage. A strange power fell on his body, as if it was probing his body, but it disappeared in an instant. If one didn't sense it carefully, they would think that it was an illusion. Zichen stopped and sat on the last jade platform. The person closest to Zichen was 10 jade platforms away from him. Old Fu nodded with satisfaction. This small test was to test one's potential, which was extremely difficult to change. The fact that Zichen could reach the final position was enough to prove that he had the highest potential. Perhaps Zichen would bring many surprises to everyone in this trip to the Talisman Forest. After everyone chose their positions, Fu Lao stepped forward and said, "All right, it's up to your luck now." As he waved his sleeve, the jade platforms under everyone began to shine. In the next moment, the light formed a shield and drowned everyone. Everyone who was shrouded in the light became motionless, as if they had fallen into a deep sleep. Fu Lao also sat down cross-legged. The Talisman Forest was very special. It targeted the soul, so everyone's physical body was still there, but their souls had already left. Zichen stood on a field and stared ahead with a blank look in his eyes. Wasn't it the Talisman Forest? Why was it a field? Furthermore, he discovered that all of his powers were in a sealed state. There was a storage bag at his waist. It was a rare item, and he didn't know why it appeared. After opening the storage bag, Zichen saw a holy talisman brush, a box of holy ink, and 10 blank first-grade holy talisman papers. As for his original spirit ring, it was no longer on his hand. He didn't know where it went. The only energy in the world was soul power. This soul power was extremely pure, and under the effect of the soul-gathering crystal, it was constantly converging towards Zichen. If someone could sense it carefully, they would find that there was a vortex outside Zichen's body that was constantly devouring the soul power in the world. The soul-gathering crystal could be used to its fullest here. His soul was abnormally active. He couldn't use his original powerful combat strength, and he couldn't activate his holy bone. In this unknown and dangerous place, Zichen didn't hesitate and began to use the only things he had. There were only 10 holy talisman papers in total, and Zichen didn't dare to waste them. 8 of them became offensive holy thunder talismans, and the other 2 were holy defense talismans. After drawing the 10 holy talismans, Zichen finally felt confident and decided to go forward to take a look. After about 100 feet, the space in front of Zichen suddenly began to distort. Then, countless holy talisman papers suddenly appeared like a torrent. Zichen sensed a dangerous aura coming from it and quickly retreated. The talisman papers formed a huge talisman beast in front of him. The surface of the talisman beast was made up of countless holy talisman patterns. Roar! With a roar, it pounced toward Zichen with murderous intent. A strong wind swept out, and countless holy talisman patterns surged. If Zichen was in his true state, he would be able to shatter this shockwave with a single punch. But now all his power was sealed, and he could only use the means of a holy talisman master to fight. Chapter 3474. As the talisman broke, the power contained in the Holy Thunder Talisman was activated. A bright light flew out and turned into a bolt of holy thunder, striking the talisman beast. Boom! The thunder roared and instantly destroyed many of the holy runes. The talisman beast's body swayed and fell to the ground. At the same time, it let out a painful roar. Then the talisman beast shook its head and stood up again. It was injured, but not dead. Zichen used another Holy Thunder talisman. At the same time, there was a look of regret in his eyes. He only had 8 of such offensive talismans. He didn't expect to waste 2 of them in the first battle. The roar sounded again. This time, the talisman beast that fell to the ground couldn't stand up. Its body exploded and turned back into many holy talismans. These holy talismans fell to the ground with a crash, littering the ground in tatters. Zichen's eyes lit up. He stared at the ground to see if there was anything he could use. Most of these holy talismans were broken. As Zichen approached, they turned into specks of light and disappeared. Large patches of light were disappearing like thousands of stars. In the blink of an eye, the place became extremely clean. Just as Zichen was in a daze, he seemed to see something in front of him. When he got closer, he realized that it was actually holy talismans. Moreover, they were blank. There were as many as 10 of them. Seeing these blank holy talismans, Zichen was delighted. After looking around and seeing that there was nothing unusual, he decisively picked them up. Of these 10 holy talismans, Zichen still drew 8 offensive talismans. The remaining 2 were defensive talismans, with 14 offensive sacred lightning talismans on him. Zichen's confidence was greatly boosted, and he sped up his advance. Then he encountered a second and third talisman beast. Every time he killed a talisman beast, Zichen would obtain some blank holy talismans. Gradually, he gained a new understanding of this place. After successfully crossing the plains, Zichen saw a small river. Above the river, there were countless blood swallows flying around. Zichen rushed forward. He was very surprised. If he guessed correctly, the blood swallows flying in the sky were the first-grade holy ink that he often used. When he got closer and saw the river, Zichen was completely dumbfounded. The entire river was composed of sacred ink. Countless blood swallows soared into the sky, letting out crisp chirps. Rather than calling it a river, it would be better to call it an endless river of sacred ink. As expected of the sacred cultivation ground of Saint Talisman Masters, this sacred ink is simply inexhaustible. While Zichen was shocked, he walked over to Mo He, intending to add some more information. Just as he approached, the Mo River rolled, and 3 blood swallows flew out. Zichen quickly retreated. He didn't expect that there would be danger here. As he retreated, a holy lightning talisman appeared in his hand. He shattered it without hesitation. The holy thunder talisman shattered, and a terrifying bolt of lightning appeared, heading straight for one of the blood swallows at the front. Along the way, Zichen was well aware of the power of his first-grade holy thunder talisman. At most, he would need 2 talismans to kill a talisman beast. Even if 3 of them appeared at once, Zichen would only need 6 holy thunder talismans. Just as the power of the holy thunder talisman was about to land on the blood swallow in front, the other 2 blood swallows sped up and formed a triangular formation. Boom! One of the blood swallows was attacked, and the terrifying power within it dispersed like flowing water. The 3 blood swallows shared the power of the holy thunder talisman and were unharmed. It's the Saint Talisman array. Seeing this, Zichen's expression changed drastically, and he quickly retreated. He didn't expect to encounter a Saint Talisman array so soon after arriving in this area. This was going to be troublesome. The 3 blood swallows flew over, spinning continuously, and lightning fell from the sky. Zichen, who had never used a Saint Defense Talisman before, did so without hesitation. A ray of light lit up around him, forming a powerful defense. The lightning fell, and with a loud boom, Zichen's defense instantly shattered. Under the lightning, Zichen tumbled away. When he got up, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Just now he had used 3 Saint Defense Talismans in a row, but they were all shattered in an instant. The power of the Saint Talisman array was clearly displayed at this moment. The 3 blood swallows danced in the air, runes circling around them, and lightning continued to fall. Zi-Chun began to dodge, and at the same time, the Saint Defense Talisman shattered. He was getting further and further away from Amohi, and the blood swallows caught up from the sky. If this continued, Zi-Chun would definitely die because the Saint Defense Talisman was used up. Am I going to die here? Under the protection of the Saint Defense Talisman, Zi-Chun looked up at the sky. The runes circled around the 3 blood swallows, forming a hole. Are those the attacks of the Holy Thunder Talisman? Zi-Chun frowned slightly. Boom! The Saint Defense Talisman in front of him shattered again, and the powerful force sent Zi-Chun flying. Zi-Chun landed on the ground, coughing up blood. He didn't dare to stay in the same place, and he tumbled away. The lightning continued to chase after him, and the roar was deafening. The blood swallows were extremely fast, and it was almost impossible to escape. If he couldn't think of a solution, the only thing waiting for Zi-Chun was death. I don't believe it. Zi-Chun gritted his teeth and released a powerful soul power, which landed on the blood swallows. There was suppression here, and although Zi-Chun couldn't use his soul power to attack, he could see every movement of the blood swallows. If he guessed correctly, the blood swallows should be the same as the Holy Thunder Talisman. If Zi-Chun wanted to break this array, he naturally needed the same array. His spiritual sense landed on the blood swallows, and he checked the connections between them. There were a total of 3 blood swallows, and they were connected according to some kind of trajectory. Boom! While Zi-Chun was carefully observing, the lightning was still roaring, and Zi-Chun was sent flying again and again. Because he had never come into contact with the Saint Talisman array, Zi-Chun didn't know the principle behind it. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. It was a note beside the Saint Talisman initial decipherment. It said that the Holy Thunder Talisman and the Holy Defense Talisman, one for offense and one for defense, were almost the same in nature. The Saint Talisman array could also be used. Zi-Chun wasn't sure if the Saint Talisman array above his head was the Holy Thunder Talisman's Saint Talisman array, but in the face of a life and death crisis, it seemed like he could only try. After making up his mind, he once again divided a part of his soul power to control the 3 Holy Defense Talismans above his head. The 3 Holy Defense Talismans began to revolve above Zi-Chun's head, and lightning fell from the sky. The Holy Defense Talismans shattered, and the 3 layers of defense were broken one after another. Failure. Zi-Chun fled quickly, and his spiritual sense observed the situation of the 3 blood swallows above his head. At the same time, he took out the 3 Holy Defense Talismans to test again. Again and again. Failure after failure. Zi-Chun was in a very sorry state. His expression became more and more unpleasant, because there weren't many Holy Defense Talismans left. If he still couldn't think of a solution, he would have to return early from this trip to the Talisman Forest. Not to mention an opportunity, he couldn't even break through the basic realm. He tried many times, but to no avail. Then, Zi-Chun was shocked to find that there were only 4 Holy Defense Talismans left. He used 3 of them without hesitation, and one of them immediately exploded, blocking a bolt of lightning. Then, Zi-Chun took out the last Holy Defense Talisman, and it floated above his head with the other 2. Buzz! Chapter 3475. If the last 3 sacred defense talismans did not succeed, Zi-Chun would have to wait for the end of the trial. In his panic, he did not know what he did, but the 3 sacred defense talismans did not explode. Instead, power surged out from them. The power of the sacred defense talismans merged together and formed a light shield above Zi-Chun's head. Above him, the 3 blood swallows continued to bombard him with lightning, but they were all blocked by the light shield above his head. Zi-Chun raised his head and looked at the rippling barrier. He was completely stunned. After a while, A look of ecstasy appeared on his face. Did I succeed? He looked carefully above his head. The 3 sacred defense talismans did not explode. Instead, they continued to release power. With the addition of the 3 talismans, the defense became extremely shocking. It was indeed a success. But how did it succeed? Zi-chan was still very confused. He did not know the reason. Next, he began to recall what he had done. When the danger came, he had no choice but to waste 1 sacred defense talisman because of the limited number. Then he quickly replenished another one and used his soul to quickly form a triangular formation. Just then, recalling the scene, Zi-chen's eyes suddenly lit up. He understood the reason. It was the soul. The root of everything was his own soul. At the critical moment, he used his soul to guide the power of the 3 sacred defense talismans. Zi-chen slapped his forehead in realization. At the same time, he was a little annoyed at his own stupidity. The most important thing for a sacred defense talisman master was the soul. This was also why many sacred defense talisman masters could only become a 1-star sacred defense talisman master after becoming a 4-star sacred spirit. Moreover, he became a 1-star sacred defense talisman master because he cultivated the dark, ghost-devouring soul technique. The soul was naturally the key. Once one understood, all would follow. Stupid, stupid, stupid. You are really stupid. Zi-chan was angry and amused at the same time. Such a simple principle had forced him into a dead end. Above his head, the sacred defense talisman's power was rapidly depleting. If this continued, it would not last for long. Zi-chan looked up at the 3 blood swallows and said, "Okay, now it's your turn." With a thought, 3 holy lightning talismans appeared in the air, forming a triangular formation. His soul began to guide the power within, fusing them together perfectly. In the next moment, the 3 holy thunder talismans glowed and began to spin rapidly. During this time, energy continuously surged out from the 3 holy thunder talismans and gathered below, slowly forming a ball of lightning. As the power of the 3 holy thunder talismans was completely exhausted and dissipated in the sky, a bolt of holy thunder flew out from the thunderball, heading straight for the 3 blood swallows. Boom! A violent boom came from heaven and earth, as if the art of controlling thunder had exploded. The 3 blood swallows were drowned by the lightning. The next moment, shards of holy talisman paper began to dance in the air. The holy defense talisman in front of Zi-chan also gradually dimmed. The 3 holy defense talismans dimmed, but they could still be used again. After using the holy defense talisman for the first time, Zi-chan noticed that there seemed to be a sparkling light flashing in the sky. Following his line of sight, Zi-chan saw 3 palm-sized crystals falling from the sky. The crystals emitted a strong soul power. In addition, there were some complete holy talisman papers. Zi-chan walked forward and picked up the 3 crystals. Are these soul stones? Didn't they say that they only appear on 2nd-grade talisman beasts? Soul stones were another kind of opportunity in the talisman forest, and only 2nd-grade talisman beasts had them. 2nd-grade talisman beasts were equivalent to 2-star sacred talisman masters, and their combat power was naturally extremely strong. The soul stones would be of great use in the end, so Zi-chan put them into his storage bag. This time there were more than 50 holy talisman papers on the ground. After picking them up, Zi-chan looked at Emohi in the distance, but in the end, he did not take the risk. He sat down and began to write talismans. This time he wrote half of the holy defense talisman, and the remaining half was the holy thunder talisman. Zi-chan discovered that his soul force was very active in this place, and there were no signs of him using up too much of his soul force. In the outside world, he could write at most 30 pieces of paper a day, but in this place he could write more than 50 pieces of paper in a row and still have some energy left. With the holy talisman on him, Zi-chan, who was much more confident, went to Emohi. He needed to replenish his blood, swallow holy ink. During this time, he appeared to be very careful, worried that another blood swallow would rush out. When he walked to Mo, everything was very quiet. Chen looked down at Mo and could see his embarrassing reflection. He bent down and began to collect the holy ink. During this time, he was on high alert. 3 dim holy defense talismans floated above his head. As expected, Chen collected enough holy ink. After getting up and looking at his reflection again, Chen laughed self-deprecatingly. Such a simple thing, but I ended up in such a sorry state. Fortunately, no one saw it. Chen turned and left. As Emohi flowed, an old man appeared silently in the air above Emohi. He looked at Chen, and a smile appeared on his face. Interesting little guy. Chen did not know that someone was behind him. In the area where Emohi extended, there were few similar incidents happening. Except for Chen, no one could successfully resolve the crisis. Knowing the foundation of a holy talisman master was one thing, and being able to control one's soul to complete this step was another. The old man appeared silently, and when he disappeared, he did not make any sound, so Chen could not detect him. At this time, he was walking in another direction and carefully studying the holy talisman array that combined 3 types of holy talismans. Obviously, this was the weakest type, but to Chen, it was enough of a surprise. Next, he encountered some talisman beasts, all of which were first grade. After killing them, there were no soul stones to be obtained. Fortunately, Chen had accumulated many holy thunder talismans. At present, he only knew 2 types of holy talismans. After traveling for about a few days, Chen finally found other holy talisman masters. From afar, he saw 2 holy talisman masters working together to fight a talisman beast. As they threw out one talisman after another, the talisman beast screamed and died in the face of such a crazy bombardment. When the 2 saw Chen, their expressions were immediately filled with vigilance. Chen stood in the distance, indicating that he had no ill intentions. One of them stared at Chen, while the other was collecting the spoils of war. Chen had never seen these 2 people before, so they should have come in from somewhere else. Do you want to join forces? The person who stared at Chen said aloud. Chen looked at the other party and still did not speak. If the 3 of us join forces, the danger will be much lower, and the spoils of war will be divided equally. What do you think? The other party said again, My name is Gaia from the Yuri family. How should I address you, friend? Chen. Chapter 3476. Seeing the change in their expressions, Chen was puzzled. Gaia looked at Chen and said, Chen. Chen nodded and said, Yes. Gaia smiled coldly. I didn't expect to meet you here. I'm sorry, but not only can we not work together, but we will also have to send you out of the Talisman Forest. Feeling the killing intent surging from these 2 strangers, Chen said calmly, Is it because of Leizheng and Hongye? Looks like you're not stupid. Gaia and Hongye walked forward, and the Holy Thunder Talisman appeared in their hands. A battle between 1-star sacred talisman masters was nothing more than the offensive and defensive sacred talismans. The talisman paper shattered, and sacred lightning fell from the sky. A defensive light rose in front of Chen. The 2 bolts of holy thunder fell one after another, hitting Chen's defense. The light of the defense kept twisting and shattering. Under his defense, Chen was unharmed. His defensive talisman had blocked 2 of his opponent's attacks. Looks like the 2 of you are only SOSO. Chen smiled faintly, and the 2 sacred lightning talismans in front of him shattered. 2 sacred lightning appeared and flew toward the 2. The world suddenly lit up and thunder rumbled. Boom! Boom! 2 screams were heard as the 2 thunder rumbled. The defense that the 2 had put up was instantly shattered, and they suffered the feeling of being struck by lightning. The smoke and dust in the sky dissipated. One person turned into green smoke and disappeared, while the other was seriously injured and fell to the ground. He looked at Zichen with eyes full of shock. This was a battle between sacred talisman masters. Although it was a low-level battle, it was very direct. The winner was decided in an instant. Looking at the frightened Gaia, Zichen said, "Not bad, you can survive." Murderous intent surged in his eyes. Gaia said in horror, "I'm from the Yuri family. You can't kill me." "Oh, is it stronger than the Leizheng family?" Zichen smiled coldly and walked forward slowly. The Holy Thunder talisman hovered before him, ready to attack at any moment. Although the Yuri family was a very big family, it was definitely not comparable to Leizheng. The Zichen in front of him even dared to provoke Leizheng's family, let alone his family. However, he was naturally unwilling to be expelled just like that. There were still many opportunities here. At the very least, he had to break through. Looking at the approaching Zichen, Gaia clenched his teeth and seemed to have made up his mind. He said, "Don't kill me, I'll tell you a secret." Zichen stopped in his tracks. "What's the secret? Tell me." Previously, we received news that Leizheng and Hongya discovered a 2-star symbol beast and are currently encircling it. A 2-star symbol beast was equivalent to a 2-star sacred symbol master. It was not easy for a 1-star sacred symbol master to kill one. Zichen said, "Is this the secret you were talking about? If I'm not wrong, that guy is still 1-star, right? How is this any different from courting death?" Gaia said, "Because that 2-star talisman beast has the holy talisman technique." "Really?" Zichen's expression changed. "It's absolutely true." Gaia nodded and said, "Leizheng and Hongya have already gathered many people." Zichen looked at Gaia and narrowed his eyes. Gaia said in horror, "You said you wouldn't kill me. We have no enmity between us. I'm targeting you because of Leizheng and Hongya's orders." "Where are they?" Zichen asked. Gaia pointed ahead. "Over there. If you're fast enough, you'll see them all the way." Zichen flew forward, increasing his speed to the maximum. There was a 1-star difference in cultivation level. It was not easy to fight someone of a higher cultivation level. Zichen decided to go and take a look. If there was a chance, he did not mind fishing in troubled waters. As for Gaia, he let him go. After traveling for about 100 miles, Zichen heard a strong fluctuation. He looked over and saw a large number of holy talismans shining at the end of his line of sight. There were offensive holy thunder talismans and offensive holy defense talismans. Zichen stealthily approached. A talisman beast that was more than 10 feet tall and surrounded by 2 golden halos was roaring at the sky. Countless bolts of holy thunder fell on its body, and terrifying lightning continued to wreak havoc. There were more than 21-star talisman masters around the 2-star talisman beast. They were using holy defense talismans and holy thunder talismans at the same time. Everyone go all out. As long as we kill it, we'll definitely get the 2-star sacred talisman art. Leizheng Hongya, who was standing in the crowd, commanded everyone loudly. Zichen hid behind a high ground and quietly watched the battle in front of him. In this place, both holy talisman masters and talisman beasts were enhanced. Therefore, this 2-star talisman beast was definitely not that simple. Roar! The roar shook the sky, and a powerful fluctuation spread out. Countless holy runes lit up around the 2-star talisman beast, and the lightning energy that fell on it dissipated. In the next moment, a huge beast shadow rushed out from the talisman beast and charged forward. The beast shadow was more than 10 feet tall, and a terrifying aura surged around it. Wherever it passed, all the holy thunder energy was dissipated. The beast shadow went straight for the holy talisman masters. The moment the two sides met, their defenses were broken. Light surged, and the holy talisman masters screamed and disappeared one after another, Seeing that 4 holy talisman masters disappeared and a few were seriously injured, Zichen's expression changed. This 2-star talisman beast was indeed powerful. The gap between 1-star and 2-star sacred talisman master was not small. Everyone be careful. Put in more effort. It's about to die. On the other side, Lei Zhanghongye shouted. The others were much more careful, and more holy thunder talismans appeared. In the sky, countless holy thunder talismans shattered. Strong light flashed continuously, and countless thunderbolts rumbled. Many attacks fell on it, and even the 2-star talisman beast could not withstand it for long. Its roar was more painful, and blood splattered from its body. Immediately after, it launched another attack. This time, everyone was prepared and retreated. During this time, they used holy defense talismans one after another. Other than one unlucky guy who disappeared, the others successfully blocked the attack. Lei Zhanghongye looked at the 2-star talisman beast that was covered in wounds, and a cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. This time, I paid a huge price to bring the holy talisman here. I'll use it to end your life. A light flashed in his hand, and a holy thunder talisman appeared. Unlike the previous ones, there were 2 rays of light on the holy thunder talisman in his hand, like 2 light wheels. This was a 2-star holy thunder talisman. Go to hell! With the 2-star holy talisman in his hand, Lei Zhanghongye smirked and crushed the talisman. A vast power appeared in the sky, causing the space there to distort. The 2-star talisman beast that was chasing after everyone seemed to have sensed the danger and turned around. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky and struck the 2-star talisman beast. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, and a powerful shockwave spread out. Chapter 3477. Thunder rumbled in the sky, forming a terrifying shockwave. The 2-star talisman beast that fell to the ground did not die. Instead, it instantly flew into the sky and fled. When it was far away, it once again used the beast phantom to attack, breaking through the encirclement of the Saint Talisman Masters. Those Saint Talisman Masters either fled or defended. They were in a very sorry state. When the energy dissipated, Lei Zhanghongye could only see the 2-star talisman beast disappear. Damn it! The talisman's energy must have been greatly depleted when it came here. Otherwise, it would have been able to kill it. Lei Zhanghongye's expression darkened when he failed to kill the talisman beast with one strike. Chase it. Even if it didn't die, it must have been severely injured. It won't be able to hold on for long. The 2-star talisman beast ran all the way into a huge valley. Although it was formed by countless saint talismans, it was now bleeding profusely. Zichen chased it all the way. He originally came here to take a look, but he did not expect that he would actually find an opportunity. In the blink of an eye, he rushed into the valley. However, in the next moment, his figure stopped, because the 2-star talisman beast was staring at him coldly. It had obviously sensed that someone was chasing it. After seeing Zichen, its eyes were filled with coldness. The runes on its body flashed, and another terrifying beast phantom rushed out, heading straight for Zichen. After the beast phantom rushed out, the 2-star talisman beast looked much weaker. Boom! A terrifying aura surged on the beast phantom as it charged directly at Zichen. It exploded in front of him, and the surrounding rocks were all turned into dust and disappeared. Looking at this scene, the 2-star talisman beast turned around and left. It thought that the human would not be able to survive. Unexpectedly at this moment, it heard a calm voice coming from behind. "You want to leave just like that?" The 2-star talisman beast turned around and saw a bright light barrier protecting the human. On that light barrier, 3 saint talismans were rotating. The 2-star talisman beast was obviously an intelligent creature. It recognized that it was a talisman array. There was fear in its eyes, and it immediately retreated. Look there. Zi Chen pointed in the direction above his head. The two-star talisman beast subconsciously looked up. In the sky, there were 3 Saint Thunder talismans. The runes on them had been activated, and the Saint talisman kept rotating, accumulating energy. The two-star talisman beast let out a terrified roar and turned around to flee. Too late! As Zi Chen's cold voice sounded, the power of the sacred talisman array exploded. Boom! Terrifying lightning descended from the sky, and a powerful, thunderous shockwave swept out in all directions. The entire mountain disappeared under the vibrating energy. Zi Chen stood where he was. Countless clouds of dust swept towards him. The defensive light blocked everything for him. As he walked forward, many shards of holy talisman danced in the billowing dust. The already heavily injured two-star talisman beast had died just like that. Soon, Zi Chen discovered 2 sparkling crystals in the central area. He quickly went forward and picked up the 2 crystals. One of them was a soul stone, and the other was some kind of soul imprint. There was an image of a beast imprinted on it. Could this be a second-grade Saint Talisman art? Seeing this scene, Zi Chen's heart skipped a beat. However, he did not immediately investigate. The commotion here was too great. Lei Zhang, Hong Yi, and the others should catch up very soon. It was better to leave first. When the dust settled, there were more than 20 blank second-grade Saint Talisman papers scattered on the ground. Zi Chen did not hesitate to keep them, even though he could not draw a second-grade Saint Talisman yet. The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Someone was flying over from afar. Zi Chen looked back at the sky and turned to leave. You want to leave? Do you think it's possible? A cold voice sounded. As the sound of something breaking through the air approached, a group of Saint Talisman masters surrounded them. This used to be a valley, but now it was flat ground. I was wondering who dared to touch my things. So it's you who doesn't know what's good for you. Lei Zhang Hongya flew over. When he saw Zi Chen, his eyes turned extremely cold. Zi Chen did not expect them to catch up so quickly. However, they were only 1-star Saint Talisman masters. Zi Chen was not afraid at all. I'll give you a chance to apologize. Hand over everything you have and the soul-gathering crystal. If you do, I'll let you continue living here. Lei Zhang Hongya looked down at Zi Chen with an arrogant expression, as if victory was in his hands. Zi Chen's lips curled into a disdainful smile. You. Lei Zhang Hongfang's eyes surged with killing intent. It seems that you're purely asking for death. In that case, I'll fulfill your wish. He waved his hand. In the sky, the Saint Thunder talisman floated out and then shattered one by one. Countless thunderbolts appeared, deafening and descending. Rumble. It was as if thousands of thunderbolts had landed where Zi Chen was standing. Countless thunderbolts lit up the surroundings and rumbled continuously. Lei Zhang Hongfang's eyes were cold and emotionless. Although he knew that Zi Chen was definitely going to die, he was still unhappy because it would be too easy for him to die like this. A person like him should be tortured to death. The other people's expressions were also incomparably cold. Countless clouds of dust tumbled and lightning flashed occasionally. There would be no accidents because they couldn't think of a reason why Zi Chen was still alive. A huge, deep pit appeared on the ground, and there were many small holes that had been pierced by the thunderbolts. In the center of the deep pit, there was a light shining. It was a light shield. 3 rotating Saint Talismans floated on the light shield. In the light shield, Zi Chen stood calmly. Everyone's expressions changed when they saw this scene. Saint Talisman Array? Lei Zhang Hongya was also stunned, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He naturally knew about the Saint Talisman Array, but it was far from something that a 1-star Saint Talisman Master should know. Could it be that Zi-Chin had already reached 2-star? Shock quickly spread through them. It's just a tripartite array. Don't panic, we have more people. As long as we attack with all our strength, we can definitely kill him. Lei Zhenghongye said loudly, he's only 1 star. Don't be deceived. In the defensive light shield, Zi-Chen smiled faintly and said, is that so? Then take a look, what's up there? Everyone subconsciously raised their heads and looked at the sky. There were also 3 saint talismans spinning there. Terrifying fluctuations surged in the next moment. The 3 Saint Thunder talismans shattered, forming 3 terrifying forces that went straight for the trio. The attack of the Saint Talisman array could be combined to form a powerful attack, but could also be used separately, and the power would be stronger than a single attack. Accompanied by 3 screams, the 3 Saint Talisman Masters left this world. These 1-star Saint Talisman Masters couldn't block the attack of the Saint Talisman array. After killing 3 people, Zi-Chin didn't seem to be exhausted at all. Immediately after, 3 more Saint Talismans appeared to form a Saint Talisman array. Looking at the combined Saint Talisman, everyone's heart trembled. Such a deadly attack would kill them instantly. Run! Someone shouted, and the others turned around without hesitation, putting up their defenses and running away. Do you think you can run? Chapter 3478. Amidst the roar, everyone quickly fled. However, there were still 3 people whose defenses were breached and disappeared from this world. As for the others, they had all fled, including Lei Zheng and Hongye. Everyone else had fled. Leaving him behind was a dead end. Where do you think you're going? Zi-Chin shouted and was about to give chase. However, he only chased for a few hundred feet before stopping. His face gradually paled. He originally thought that he wouldn't consume too much of his soul power, but after the series of attacks, his soul power had been greatly exhausted. Previously, he had used 2 defensive talisman arrays against the 2-star talisman beast's attack. The second time, he had used the same method against everyone. The soul was the key to completing the sacred talisman array. While pursuing powerful strength and defense, it also consumed a lot of his soul power. However, this place was extremely mystical. With the help of the soul-gathering crystal, this kind of consumption could be quickly replenished. Thunder rumbled as a 1-star talisman beast fell. Zi-Chan stepped forward and took the empty talisman paper. It had been 5 days since the last battle. Zi-Chen had been going deeper and deeper, and he hadn't encountered anyone else. He had already accumulated a certain amount of sacred thunder talismans on him, enough to sustain a large-scale battle. Moreover, as he continued to use the sacred thunder talisman in battle, Zi-Chen had a certain understanding of the sacred talisman master's methods. At the same time, he had become more adept at using his soul power. Sitting on the mountain peak, Zi-Chen looked at the dense forest in the distance, somewhat absent-minded. In his hand, he held a crystal imprint. This was a sacred talisman art called the Soul of Sacred Thunder. It was a 2nd-grade sacred talisman art. With Zi-Chen's current strength, he still couldn't inscribe it. After using the sacred talisman for the past few days, Zi-Chen didn't plan to advance quickly. This was because he realized that he still had a lot of room for growth at this level. Among them, Zi-Chen could clearly sense the number of sacred talisman arrays superimposed. He had been experimenting for the past few days and finally came to a conclusion. When he used 6 sacred talismans, he could also form a sacred talisman array, and its power was even stronger than the previous 3-talent array. Zi-Chen put away the imprint crystal. Under the effect of the soul-gathering crystal, his consumed soul was once again replenished. 6 divine defense talismans appeared in front of him. The holy defense talisman flew to the top of his head. Zi-Chen used his soul power to control it. At the same time, he drew on the power within it. His soul power was being consumed at an extremely fast rate. He tried again and again. In his sea of consciousness, the soul-gathering crystal kept absorbing the power of the soul between heaven and earth. Zichen's soul, which had been destroyed by the underworld ghost soul refining technique, was growing. If Zichen's sea of consciousness was a wooden bucket, then Zichen's soul was the water in the bucket. It was just that this water was constantly being compressed to the extreme, causing it to evolve and become another kind of substance. Its quantity was only 1/3 of its original. Next, Zichen needed to fill in the 2/3 that had disappeared. When Zichen's soul was fully replenished, his soul would be in its strongest state, just as Zichen tried again and again. Because of the soul-gathering crystal, his soul was constantly being replenished and consumed. The total quantity was also increasing. Another 3 days passed. Zichen became more and more proficient in controlling the 6 divine defense talismans. At the same time, he could persist for longer and longer. When his soul power was exhausted again, the pale-faced Zichen put away the holy defense talisman. At this rate, his holy defense talisman array would evolve again in less than 3 days. While his soul was recovering, Zichen took a look at his storage bag. He found that there were not many holy defense talismans left. During this period of time, he had failed repeatedly and consumed a lot of them. I've stopped here for 10 days. It's time to go deeper. I'll find some talisman beasts and replenish the number of holy defense talismans I have. An hour later, Zichen, whose soul had completely recovered, jumped down from the mountain peak and headed deeper. After walking for dozens of miles, he encountered a 1-star talisman beast. Zichen used 2 holy thunder talismans to kill it. He did not stop and continued deeper. When the sky was completely dark, he killed another 5 1-star talisman beasts. As he went deeper, the talisman beasts he encountered became stronger. In the end, he even needed 3 holy thunder talismans to kill one. At night, Zichen was drawing talismans next to the bonfire. In order to experiment with the holy defense talisman array, he deliberately drew more holy defense talismans this time. Suddenly, Zichen's expression changed, and he dodged without hesitation. On his half-completed talisman paper, light rippled like water waves, and the talisman paper shattered. The pitch-black night suddenly brightened. A bolt of holy thunder fell from the sky and landed where Zichen was standing. Boom! With a loud boom, the area was enveloped by holy thunder. The holy thunder's energy raged wildly. Zichen stood in the distance, holding the holy talisman brush in his hand and looking ahead cautiously. A man walked out of the forest. "Who are you?" Zichen stared at the newcomer with a guarded expression. He felt a strong sense of threat from the newcomer. "Are you Zichen?" The man did not answer. Instead, he asked a question. Zichen nodded. "That's right." The man's expression was cold, and his voice was also very cold. "I'm here to send you back." In the next moment, Zichen's pupils constricted as he stared at the newcomer. A holy thunder talisman appeared in front of the man. It was different from the ones he usually used. This holy thunder talisman had 2 light wheels revolving around it. 2-star holy thunder talisman. Obviously, the man was a 2-star holy talisman master. The holy thunder talisman shattered and a terrifying energy gathered. This was the means of a higher realm. Fortunately, Zichen was already prepared. The moment the world lit up, 3 holy defense talismans flew out from his body and rotated above his head, forming the simplest 3 elements holy talisman array. Buzz! Light surged out from the talismans and formed a defense to protect Zichen. As soon as the defense was formed, the holy thunder struck down. Thunder roared as if there was a thunder dragon tearing at the defense. The young man, who was originally cold, had a look of surprise in his eyes. 3 elements talisman array? In fact, What surprised him was not the talisman array itself, but Zi Chen's realm. A mere one-star holy talisman master could form a talisman array. How strong would his soul be? It could be said that, in terms of soul strength, the other party was not weaker than him. However, the other party was also a one-star holy talisman master. This was interesting. This second-grade holy thunder talisman naturally did not achieve the desired effect. The young man sneered. This is the first time I've seen such an interesting guy. It's just a 3 elements talisman array. It's a must-learn skill for a 2-star holy talisman master. As soon as he finished speaking, the young man's body lit up and the 3 holy thunder talismans flew into the sky. Chapter 3479. Zi Chen was very nervous when he heard the 2-star sacred talisman master's words. The sacred talisman array was the only thing he could rely on. If his opponent also knew it, then he would not be able to match him at all. However, Zi Chen's expression gradually relaxed when he saw the 3 saint talismans rising into the air. Because they were 1-star sacred talismans, not 2-star sacred talismans. The 3 1-star sacred talismans flew into the air, formed a seal, and attacked. Lightning drowned Zi Chen. The roar resounded in all directions, and a powerful wave spread out. The nearby trees were all destroyed, and sawdust filled the sky. Amidst the raging lightning, Zi Chen flew out. His defense had already been shattered. In terms of attack power, the 2-star sacred talisman master was indeed stronger than him. Trying to escape? The 2-star sacred talisman master sneered. More than 22-star sacred thunder talismans were floating above Zi Chen's head. The talisman papers were shattered one by one, and lightning bolts fell one after another. Zi Chen ran wildly, and the defense talisman array was constantly being depleted. This was the sacred talisman master's ability. He could stand still and use countless sacred talismans to blast the enemy into nothingness. Let's see how long you can last. The 2-star sacred talisman master sneered. He did not lack sacred talismans at all. Zi Chen was running in a sorry state, and he could only run in a very small area. He could not even escape far away. This was suppression. If he could not think of a way to defeat his opponent, he could only be expelled from this place. Zi Chen was not used to being unable to use his strength. If he had all his strength, he could defeat his opponent with just his fists. Zi Chen, you are more tenacious than I thought. The 2-star sacred spirit laughed. Lei Zhenghongye will be very happy if he sees this scene. A memory crystal ball had appeared in his hand, and he was currently recording everything that had happened in it. He said he would torture you to death. Now that you are in such a sorry state, it should be considered torture, right? The 2-star sacred talisman master laughed proudly. Zi Chen, who was running away, turned around and stopped. His eyes were as cold as a blade. Why did you stop running? The 2-star saint talisman master had a mocking look on his face. If he kept running away, he would only become a laughingstock. He had no choice but to risk it all. 3 divine defense talismans appeared above his head, forming a defensive barrier to block the holy lightning. At the same time, Zi Chen clenched his teeth and used his powerful spiritual strength to control the 6 offensive holy lightning talismans and send them flying into the sky. 6 directions, array glyphs. This was the only way Zi Chen could defeat the enemy, and there was only one chance. If he didn't succeed, he would be banished and become a laughingstock. He had forced himself into a dead end. At this moment, the black soul also became active. The soul-gathering crystal shone brightly as it continued to absorb the soul energy from the heaven and earth. The vortex, represented by the dark, ghost-devouring soul technique, also began to revolve at high speed. Liu Ha! The 2-star sacred talisman master was stunned when he saw the 6 sacred thunder talismans in the air. But soon he began to laugh loudly. You idiot! What great ambition! You actually want to condense the 6 directions symbol array. Zi-Chen ignored him and used his spiritual strength to control the combination of the 6 sacred thunder talismans. Even a 2-star sacred talisman master like me wouldn't dare to try, let alone a 1-star sacred talisman master like you. Who do you think you are? Completing the tripartite symbol array required a powerful spiritual strength. Every time it was used, it would consume a lot of spiritual strength. An ordinary 1-star sacred talisman master's spiritual strength was not enough to support it. Only 2-star sacred talisman masters had such strength, but it was already good enough for a 2-star sacred talisman master to complete the tripartite symbol array. As for the 6 directions symbol array, he did not even dare to think about it. As for Zi-Chen, a 1-star sacred talisman master, in his opinion, it was impossible for him to complete it. I thought you would be able to hold on for a while, but now your spiritual strength is about to be used up. You can only wait for your death. The 2-star sacred talisman master sneered. Victory was already in his hands. The sacred talisman array consumed a lot of spiritual strength. He knew very well that not only would Zi-Chen fail, but he would also lose the ability to fight after that. Is that so? At this moment, Zi-Chen's cold voice suddenly sounded. Aren't you overconfident? The 6 sacred talismans began to spin above his head. The sacred talisman inscriptions within were fully activated and combined together. Zi-Chen's spiritual strength had exceeded his expectations and completed the fusion for the first time. Hexad symbol array complete. Looking at the surging ripples in the sky, the 2-star sacred talisman master was shocked. He exclaimed in disbelief, "How is this possible? You're just a 1-star sacred spirit. How can you control the Hexad symbol array?" This was completely inconceivable. He had not expected it to happen just like that. Zi-Chen's face was a little pale, facing the pressure of life and death. Although he had successfully set up the symbol array, it had consumed a lot of spiritual strength. Therefore, he had no time to answer his opponent's question. He moved his spiritual strength. The power of the 6 sacred talismans combined and formed a thick thunderbolt that descended from the sky. Sensing danger, the 2-star sacred talisman master's expression changed drastically. He did not hesitate to use the tripartite symbol array. Although they were all formed by 1-star sacred defense talismans, this was his strongest defense. However, he did not have the slightest confidence that he could block this attack. Just as the sacred defense formation appeared, another 2-star sacred defense talisman appeared in his hand. At this moment, the 2-star sacred talisman master was frustrated and regretful. If he could use the 2-star sacred defense talisman to form the sacred talisman array, he would definitely be able to block this attack. Thunder boomed. Heaven and earth shook. The lightning formed by the 6 holy thunder talismans was unstoppable. Not only did it instantly obliterate the holy talisman, but it also destroyed a 2-star holy defense talisman. The 2-star sacred talisman master was struck by the thunderbolt and let out a scream. The terrifying power wreaked havoc on his body. In the next moment, his body disappeared. Zi-Chen had directly expelled him. After that attack, Zi-Chen's spiritual strength was also completely depleted. He did not dare to stay here any longer and quickly flew away. He did not advance. Instead, he retreated. Because the previous commotion was too big, there might be others nearby who would rush over. Just as he was retreating quickly, an old man appeared silently. He glanced at the messy battlefield and then looked in the direction Zi-Chen had fled. Interesting. 3 talents, 6 directions. I wonder if it's possible to complete the 9 superbs. The old man's eyes were filled with anticipation. His figure disappeared in the next moment. Zi-Chen was fleeing as fast as he could to prevent anyone from catching up to him. In his sea of consciousness, the soul-gathering crystal sped up the absorption. Vaguely, a a real soul vortex formed around Zichen. Countless spiritual strength from this area was drawn into his sea of consciousness by the soul-gathering crystal. Then these souls would be condensed by the ghost soul refining technique and replenished into new souls. As Zichen's consumed souls recovered, the number of his souls also increased. At the original battlefield, Lei Zhanghongya appeared with 5 people. Looking at the messy ground, he could not help but frown. Where is everyone? He looked around but did not see anyone. Zichen was gone. Zhao Yun, who he had found to deal with Zichen, was also gone. He did not believe that Zichen could kill Zhao Yun. As a 2-star sacred talisman master, Zhao Yun also knew the 3 talents talisman array. But where did Zhao Yun go? Find them. We must find them. Chapter 3480. With this retreat, Zichen had retreated far enough, and his soul had also recovered a little. Returning to the mountain peak, Zichen began to recover his soul. In less than an hour, his soul had completely recovered, and this time, Zichen clearly felt that his soul had improved greatly. He started drawing talismans again. The talisman paper glowed, and a light will surged. It was still a 1-star talisman. At the same time, this also meant that Zichen was still a 1-star sacred talisman master. After carving all the remaining blank talisman papers, Zichen began to condense the sacred talisman array. With the successful experience, his soul had strengthened a lot, and the next step was naturally much easier. The 6 directions defense and attack talisman arrays were successfully condensed in one go. However, his soul was too exhausted, and he couldn't fight for a long time. After hesitating for a while, Zichen decided to stay where he was and cultivate at full speed to improve his soul power. Because he had retreated far enough, Lei Zhanghongya and the others couldn't find this place. It was also because of this that they managed to survive. Zichen came here purely to improve, so he stayed where he was for more than half a month. In this half a month, his soul had improved significantly. When he controlled the 6 directions talisman array again, it was no longer as strenuous, and he could use it for a long time. If others knew about this, they would be extremely shocked, because many 2-star sacred talisman masters couldn't do what Zichen did. Next, Zichen began to go deeper at full speed. Although he was still a 1-star sacred talisman master, he wasn't afraid even if he encountered a 2-star sacred talisman master. However, what puzzled him was that, according to his soul strength, he should have reached 2-star long ago. Why hadn't he broken through yet? The talisman papers in front of him rolled, and a talisman beast appeared. At this area, all the talisman beasts that appeared were 2-star, and the one in front of him was no exception. Zichen looked ahead, and the talisman papers around him rolled. Roar! The 2-star talisman beast roared, and its body lit up. In the sky, space began to distort, and countless sharp blades fell from the sky, heading straight for Zichen. Buzz! A sacred talisman flew out of Zichen's body, forming a barrier in front of him. 6 directions defensive formation. Countless sharp blades fell from the sky and struck the defensive light barrier, creating ripples. Only the 1-star Zichen could block the attack of a 2-star talisman beast by using this move. Similarly, if he wanted to kill the other party, he would need the 6 directions offensive glyph array. It was said that this was the most basic talisman array for sacred talisman masters. As long as one's soul was strong enough, they could use it. According to the grades of the sacred talisman array, Sankai was Earth grade low grade, while Lyoha was Earth grade mid grade. In the sky, the power of the 6 holy lightning talismans merged into one. A thick bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck the 2-star talisman beast. With a blood-curdling scream, the talisman beast died. Zichen obtained a new 2-star holy talisman paper and a beast soul crystal. This time, He did not obtain the holy talisman art. After cleaning up the loot, Zichen continued forward. Because of the previous pause, Zichen's spiritual strength had increased by quite a bit. Controlling the 6 directions formation was a piece of cake for him. In the following battles, Zichen encountered all 2-star talisman beasts. If he did not form the sacred talisman array, he could not do anything to them. Along the way, Zichen used up a lot of sacred talismans, but he also obtained a lot of 2-star holy talisman papers. Zichen had not used these sacred talisman papers yet. A few days later, Zichen saw ripples of battle. There should be other people in this area. One day, when Zichen was investigating a battlefield, he suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air. He looked up and found that he was surrounded. "Zichen, we meet again." A familiar and cold voice sounded. It was Lei Zhanghongya. Looking at him, Zichen frowned and said, "You're really like a ghost that won't go away. I see you everywhere." "Humph, you're about to die and you're still so arrogant?" Lei Zhanghongya sneered and said mockingly, "You're still a 1-star cultivator, right?" Zichen looked around. There were a total of 8 people here, and from the soul fluctuations around them, he could tell that all of them had already advanced to 2 stars. He frowned slightly. There seemed to be some trouble. "Hand over the soul-amassing crystal, and I'll spare your life." Lei Zhanghongya said coldly, "I'll let you live here until the end of this trial." "You talk too much. If you want to fight, then fight. If not, scram." Zichen said impatiently, "No, even if we don't fight, you can forget about leaving. This time, I won't let you go no matter what. I'll send you away first." "You're talking big." A sacred thunder talisman appeared in front of Lei Zhanghongya. It was a 2nd grade talisman. At the same time, the other 7 people also took out 2nd grade talismans. "Go to hell. Remember, this is not over. Even if we're outside, I'll still find a chance to kill you." 8 2nd-grade sacred thunder talismans flew toward Zichen. They shattered midway, forming 8 terrifying thunderbolts that went straight for Zichen. A hexad talisman array appeared in front of Zichen. It was called a talisman array because it could display unparalleled power. The hexagonal symbol array blocked the 8 consecutive attacks. Amidst the rolling thunder, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment as they looked at Zichen, who was still standing at the same spot. "It's the hexad talisman array." "How is this possible? You're only a 1-star cultivator. How can you master the hexad talisman array?" Lei Zhanghongya exclaimed. The confidence on his face had long disappeared. This didn't make sense. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost his composure. Zichen smiled coldly. 6 sacred thunder talismans flew out and formed a talisman array in the sky. "Looks like I need to make you understand something." Zichen took a step forward. The defensive talisman array appeared in front of him again. "I've been fighting those above my level all this time. The restriction of level is almost useless against me. Now, even if I can only display the power of a single profession like Sacred Talisman Master, I still have to tell you that level is useless against me." The sacred thunder fell from the sky. Even if it was only a 1st-grade talisman, its power was enough to kill a 2nd-grade talisman master. Thunder rumbled continuously. Amidst the rolling dust, the screams of the 2-star sacred talisman masters could be heard. The battle happened quickly and ended even faster. When the energy waves disappeared, the 8 2-star sacred talisman masters had already left the talisman forest. "Zichen, I won't let you go." Lei Zhanghongya's unwilling voice echoed in the sky. Zichen's face was a little pale. Killing 8 2-star sacred talisman masters in one go and defending against their attacks had consumed a lot of his soul power. Chapter 3481. This time, The feeling of his soul growing was very clear. This made Zi-Chin feel excited. He took out the remaining first-grade sacred talisman paper and started to draw the sacred thunder talisman. In this messy battlefield, he appeared to be completely focused. When the tip of the brush touched the sacred talisman paper, a light was imprinted on it. The first sacred thunder talisman was successfully drawn. A light pattern surged out, illuminating the surroundings. It was still a first-grade talisman, but it was obviously better than before. Then the second, third, and fifth talismans were drawn. Although they were all first-grade talismans, Zi-Chen's confidence grew. He took a deep breath and used his soul power to control his movements. Buzz! When the sixth sacred talisman was drawn, a ripple surged out and a strong aura surged. 2 light patterns appeared on the sacred talisman. 2-star sacred thunder talisman. At this moment, Zi-Chen's sacred talisman master level had advanced. Zi-Chen's face revealed a joyful expression. He did not expect to be able to reach 2-star so quickly. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from the sky. Your soul has advanced. Do you want to take the test? Test? Zi-Chen was stunned and looked up at the sky. There was no one. He asked curiously, what test? Do you want to take the test? The cold voice sounded again like a machine. Zi-Chen didn't know what was going on, but it was obviously not a bad thing. Almost all tests had rewards for success. He immediately nodded and said loudly, take the test! Swoosh! A light descended from the sky and landed on Zi-Chen, enveloping his body. Zi-Chen found that he had arrived at a strange space. There was a table in front of him. There was a pen, ink, and paper on the table that emitted light. Zi-Chen noticed that the 3 items were all second grade. He walked forward and saw a total of 10 blank second-grade sacred talisman papers on the table. First test, 10 second-grade sacred talismans. There were only a total of 10 saint talisman papers, and the requirement to succeed in refining all 10 was clearly a 100% success rate. In Zi-Chen's opinion, this test was a little strange. For some new saint talisman masters, the difficulty was not low. However, this was not difficult for him, not to mention that he was using the best things. However, for safety's sake, Zi-Chen drew 10 Holy Thunder talismans in total. From start to finish, he didn't fail even once. They were all successful. Shwa! The object in front of him disappeared along with the second-grade Holy Talisman brush in Zi-Chen's hand. The space in front of him distorted, and a space portal opened. Zi-Chen walked in. There was another space in front of him. 3 second-grade Holy Thunder talismans were floating in the air. The second test, tripartite Holy Thunder formation. The indifferent voice sounded again. Zi-Chen immediately released his soul power to control the 3 Holy Lightning talismans. Although it was his first time controlling a second-grade Holy Lightning talisman, it was a piece of cake for him because of his powerful soul power. The 3 Holy Lightning talismans rotated slowly in the air, and their power gradually merged before shattering. A terrifying power gathered and blasted into the void. It was also a tripartite talisman array, but the one activated by the second-grade Holy Thunder talisman was much more powerful. As the tripartite talisman array disappeared, a second space appeared in front of Zi-Chen. After entering, there were 6 Holy Thunder talismans that Zi-Chen had to control. This was the Hexad talisman array. It was not difficult for Zi-Chen. After the talisman array was activated, another space appeared in front of him. After that, Zi-Chen encountered 9 Holy Thunder talismans. This Holy Talisman array was called the 9 Extremes, which also meant the limit. 9 second-star Holy Thunder talismans floated in front of Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen took a deep breath. This was something he had never tried before, and he had no confidence at all. His surging soul power instantly enveloped the 9 Holy Thunder talismans. In the next moment, the holy thunder talismans began to vibrate and rotate slowly. Zichen's soul power began to deplete rapidly. He gritted his teeth and persevered. His soul power surged wildly. At the same time, the soul-gathering crystal in his spiritual sea was rapidly absorbing soul power. The ghost-devouring soul technique was also operating at high speed. However, controlling 9 second-star holy thunder talismans required too much soul power. Chi, one of the holy thunder talismans, began to vibrate and shatter. The power of the holy thunder dissipated. Chi, Chi, Chi. The remaining holy thunder talismans shattered one after another. He had failed. A look of regret appeared on Zichen's face. As expected, the test is over. The cold voice sounded again. Then the sky began to distort. Light descended from the sky. It was a holy talisman brush with 2 light patterns. It was a 2nd grade holy talisman. Zichen reached out and grabbed the 2nd grade holy talisman brush. This should be the reward. Then another 2nd grade holy talisman fell and was caught by Zichen. Now that he had the holy talisman brush and the 2nd grade holy talisman paper, Zichen would have no difficulty in drawing the 2nd grade holy talisman. Just when Zichen thought that these were the only 2 rewards, a golden light flashed in the sky. Then a golden round stone fell. Zichen caught it instinctively. The golden round stone looked like the soul stone obtained from killing a talisman beast. However, the soul power it contained was very rich and pure. Zichen looked it up and down before putting it away. He did not know how to use it for the time being. After obtaining these 3 items, Zichen disappeared from this space. During the previous test, his soul power had been completely depleted, but now it was at its peak. He was slightly stunned. Fortunately, the 2nd grade holy talisman brush and holy talisman brush were still there. Only then did Zichen know that what had happened earlier was real and not an illusion. Next, he began to draw the 2-star sacred thunder talisman so that he could use it in the next battle. After preparing a number of 2-star sacred thunder talismans, Zichen tried to draw another 2-star sacred thunder talisman, Sacred Thunder Spirit. This was the first time Zichen tried to draw it after he had advanced to the next level. It was also a 2-star Sacred Thunder Talisman, but the Sacred Thunder Spirit was much more difficult than the Sacred Thunder Talisman. With the current strength of Zichen's soul power, he failed more than 20 times before he succeeded. This was simply unbelievable to Zichen. One had to know that he had never wasted so many holy talisman papers when he had entered the sect. Fortunately, after he succeeded, his success rate increased significantly. There were only 1 or 2 failures, but it didn't affect him much. As he continued to go deeper and kill talisman beasts, Zichen obtained more and more soul stones. These soul stones would be of great use in the future. Fighting, drawing talismans, and moving forward. Everything was carried out efficiently and steadily, like a machine. Zichen's soul power grew stronger in the process. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.